do you find co-founders? What happens just before you formally agree? What sort of conflicts arise? How are those conflicts handled?
Today I have with me Professor Raj Krishnan Shankar from Great Lakes Institute of Management in Chennai. 90% of the startups fail. What happens to the entrepreneurs?
If you take 4 things out of the 30 things that a Steve Jobs did and actually copy it.
And now you're saying you don't learn from failure?
So it's not like as soon as I fail, I can automatically learn from the failure.
This idea is revealing for me. What are we researching then?
Faculty is confused, the entrepreneur is confused. Hey, why did this happen? For me, it's very, very important that a faculty...
Are we celebrating entrepreneurship too much?
We are not doing enough celebration.
What is the student entrepreneur missing today?
There's productive entrepreneurship, there's unproductive entrepreneurship. There's also...
What are the ideas that you would love to test on student entrepreneurs?
Pre-incubation is really understudied.
All right, we are back at River University for the Guess India podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me. In the Guess India podcast so far, we've been talking to several student-turned entrepreneurs and enablers. We have a lot of ideas around how student entrepreneurs begin, how do they shape their journeys, who helps them. But is this really what is happening on the ground? Talking to a few people does not tell us what is the reality in general. Therefore, I thought it is relevant to now talk to someone who knows the entrepreneurship research very well. If you look at the literature, are our assumptions or our perceptions that we are building through the Guess India podcast, do they stand true? Or is the research saying something else? To validate these hypotheses, today I have with me Professor Raj Krishnan Shankar from Great Lakes Institute of Management in Chennai. Raj is a celebrated author. He's a researcher. He's known widely in the research community to publish in the area of entrepreneurship. He's done a lot of work in the area of corporate accelerators, entrepreneurship in general. And he goes around building capacity for researchers in the area of entrepreneurship. Raj, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Fantastic. Thanks, Puran. This is it's so nice to see you take on one more interesting, institution building activity. I think student entrepreneurship has been lying on the sidelines for too long, so I think it's time it got its fair share. So thank you for having me on this show.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. I think, see, one of the ideas for this conversation, although I've mentioned it broadly, for students, probably we've not activated the ecosystem very widely. Students basically go to an educational institute to, get education. Right? They pay for it. They are there for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever program they join, and they come out of it. But are we really creating people who are we creating self-reliance, or are we creating dependence? Should students be looking for jobs at the end of education, or should they be looking at creating livelihood, creating self-sustenance, right? That is one idea that has fascinated me. And we thought, everyone does not need to become an entrepreneur, but still there has to be a fair proportion of people who should start thinking in this direction of, relying on themselves to create a livelihood rather than looking out for jobs, right?
True.
So with that idea, we thought, let's look at students and let's look at entrepreneurship. Should students be looking at entrepreneurship as a career choice, career option? Is it a valid career option for students at this time to take up this option, or even start thinking about it? And our universities, we educators doing enough? Are we doing justice to opening up their minds to all possibilities, or are we, as we have done traditionally, preparing them only to take up jobs, right? So we've been talking to student entrepreneurs and enablers to understand students' mindsets. But today I want to ask you questions where, based on the perceptions, the understanding that we have developed so far. the very first thing that comes to my mind is entrepreneurship mindset, entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
Now, there are theories, there is research,
Yeah.
but also we talk to entrepreneurs and we hear them say these things.
Yeah.
So, we want to understand what is this entrepreneurial. Let's define it. What is this entrepreneurial mindset? And then I'll ask you later about how does it get built.
Okay. So let me split that up. So before getting to entrepreneurial mindset, I think we need to understand what's a mindset. Um, a mindset is a set of attitudes that a person carries, or a sort of lens through which any individual looks at the world. And there are different kinds of lenses through which you can look at any phenomenon or the world in general. So people form attitudes over time, and based on the attitudes they have formed, they think about the thing that they are seeing, they feel the thing they are seeing, and they also act or respond to what is happening. So now extending this to entrepreneurial mindset is one way in which people can, look at something. And the moment I look at something, three things get activated in me or in any individual. The first is the cognitive element. I start thinking about it. I start making meaning out of it. I start making sense of it. Second is sometimes it affects my affect, in the sense it gets me emotionally charged up sometimes, or sometimes get me boring. So it does something to my emotional part as well. And the third is sometimes it makes me do something about it. So it translates into behavior as well. So for me, an entrepreneurial mindset is a set of choices or choice of lenses that a student can develop with regard to how he thinks about opportunity, how he feels or she feels about opportunity, and how she or he acts on an opportunity. So this is how I think of an entrepreneurial mindset. And because it is something that is cultivated, uh, it requires some orchestration, some training, some experiences, and so on. But let me stop with the definition, and then we'll, as we speak along, we will discuss this in detail. But I think the fundamental point I'm trying to make is that it is a set of beliefs, it's a set of attitudes that a person brings or develops over time. And therefore, for me, entrepreneurial mindset is is really about a combination of these three things.
Okay. So there is a cognitive element to it, emotional, and a behavioral element to it.
Yeah.
So we've been going around telling students to act entrepreneurially. For example, when you, I mostly make reference to the effectuation theory, right? See what you have, what you can build with it, who you are, right? Affordable loss, build networks, and then believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
Don't, follow what experts are saying. How does that translate into these three elements: cognitive, emotional, and behavior?
Yeah. So let me bring some balance to this thing, because I think effectuation is a great theory. I'm equally a fan of it, and it's amazing piece of work. But I think this is where I think reading good research, and I think we need students also to look at it, is where did this theory come from? A lot of effectuation actually was grown out of working with expert entrepreneurs. And if you look at the way expert entrepreneurs are defined, you'll see that these are people who've been in entrepreneurship for a while. And so that reflection that they do to find out how they do things is actually, there is cognitive element because they're already thinking about their thinking. So there's even a metacognitive element behind what they do. Now, when you look at a student who's probably doing this for the first time, they don't have that repertoire of past experience behind them. So it's like a nascent entrepreneur. So what happens is maybe these people need a little bit more nudging, a little bit more inputs than an expert entrepreneur. So sometimes when theories are developed, I think it's also nice to look at the boundary conditions of various theories and its applicability. Of course, effectuation has now become a real phenomenon, and it's grown up and it's being used across the world. It is very, very intuitively appealing. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, we need to appreciate the fact that, how we implement it in different contexts other than from where it originated will help the educator also bring in value. So clearly, there is a cognitive element behind it. Emotive or emotion is something that we can't separate out at all, because by nature, an entrepreneurial action is laden with emotion, simply because you start acting itself because you get affected, and therefore you can't remove the affect portion at all. So there is a cognitive element happening, there is a emotional element happening, and I think what happens is behavior gets so much attention because behavior is the visible part of this three.
Correct.
So now most people focus only on behavior, which I think is a mistake. I think we need to look at all three, but be cognizant of the fact that cognition and emotion are a bit more difficult to see. Behavior is a lot more easier to notice.
Okay. So these three elements do pan out in effectuation as well. So yeah, I remember the effectuation theory. It is based on research with expert entrepreneurs who have been successful, and then they were given a case to read and answer questions. How would you solve these problems? So are we correct in applying it to, say, for example, students, saying, use effectuation, focus on bird in hand, affordable laws, build your network? Are we right in applying that theory to students?
I'm going to get a little controversial, but so what I do when I teach entrepreneurship is I always expose multiple theoretical frames to students in class. What I tell them is, hey, here are 3 or 4 ways to do entrepreneurship that theory suggests. Effectuation is clearly one way of doing it. Causation is another way, bricolage is another way. So there are lots of different approaches that one can take to doing entrepreneurship. What actually that individual does is probably not even a simple straightforward. It's a mix and match of multiple things. And as with anything practice, it gets messy and then we can't see what, it's very fuzzy. So, but there are some, theory is just a good explanation of how it happens. So I always expose them to multiple approaches. Some are appealing to some personalities. And I think I always tell them, find which is the best fit for you and then try to use it, because then you make the best use of it. Rather than me suggesting that I run my entire course on effectuation because I think it's the best, I allow my students to make that choice. So I take each piece, I tell them how they can use cognition to their advantage. I take emotion, I tell them, okay, let's see how we can keep emotion in check, especially when you're making rational decisions. So we put them in situations and say, okay, how do we do this? And then we tell them that at the end of the day, you have to act, because if you don't act, you don't have a chance to reflect. So therefore, action precedes it, but immediately follows up with review of what is happening in your head, what is happening with your feelings, and then go back to action. I don't think it should be too much thinking before action. I think it's act, think, and then act. So I don't want to reverse that process. I'm not saying that we should start with thinking, which is the mistake we think, or many educators I've spoken with say that, entrepreneurship is too action oriented. So why spend time thinking? Let's just get started. I'm saying no, good entrepreneurs are actually very reflective people, but not reflecting on somebody else's action. They reflect on their own actions very, very deeply. So therefore, I think it should start with a little bit of action, because action gives you the material for reflection. So therefore, act, think, and then go back to act. I think that's the process.
Yeah. So action execution first approach. That is another thing that we keep talking to the entrepreneurs about, that you have to execute, focus on action. See, traditional management theories or management education is focused on helping people go into an established organization and run it efficiently. Optimize. Here is a goal, how do you achieve it in the best possible way? But entrepreneurship is reverse.
Correct.
Do something, fail, and then learn from it. Right? Action first. Am I thinking correctly?
So the way I mean, it's broadly in the same direction, but I'll just take again a little twist. So while a lot of management is about optimization, as you rightly said, so that means I have a system, I need to run it for efficiency. Entrepreneurship is not about efficiency. It's about dealing with slack. So look at it the ulta way. So that way I totally agree with you. Yes, you have to act because I don't have any standard process for doing this. So which means I have to only experiment. And when I experiment, one of the first things that comes out is waste.
Yeah.
Because I do not know what is happening. And therefore, I have to sustain that process for which I have to start thinking whether I'm going in the right direction or not. But I'm not trying to optimize. So this optimization as a general thought process, which is a good manager is taught, is actually not very helpful when it comes to entrepreneurship, at least in the early stages, because the intention is not to optimize. The intention is to experiment. An experiment by nature, if you run an optimized experiment, it's almost like a oxymoron, you know. So it's like you're telling the person, don't do things that won't work.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do away with that. We're saying no, experiment. So action is very important, but act without trying for efficiency, which is why, like for example, you will have a negative, unit cost at the beginning. That's okay.
Yeah.
But you're trying to still figure out whether this is even really worth pursuing. But the only way to know it is by doing it. So yeah.
And that's why, we have startups now with negative earnings,
Yes.
doing IPOs, which was earlier not the case, right? So that's how this entire shift is happening. The management principles may not apply to entrepreneurship. And this is where the mindset comes in.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned there are, 2, 3 other words: causation, theory, bricolage, right? How are they different from effectuation? Can we go over these one by one?
Yeah. Very quickly, I think effectuation arose because of the fundamental difference between causation and effectuation, Saraswati explains in a very interesting piece, first piece, popular piece, is causation starts with the end in mind. So which means it's like solving a puzzle. I know exactly what the end is, and I'm trying to see how I can reach to the end. Effectuation says no, I don't know what the end is, and that's an interesting idea, because what do we mean by saying we don't know what the end is? When we say we don't know what the end is, that means I do not even know what I'm going to make at the end of this process. But I know broadly in this space I'm going to do something, right? Let's say I want to, get into um, resolving an access problem, right? But I really don't know how this healthcare access problem I'm going to solve, but I know this is a real pain point and I get started. Now, an effectuation process would start by saying, okay, let me look at what I have and see what I can do as a first step to addressing this problem. Whereas a causal thinker would say, you know what, access problem can be solved by building a hospital in a rural area. Now, let me figure out how I can get a hospital in a rural area.
Okay.
Now, an effectual thinker will say, hey, I really don't know how to solve this problem. Let me just say, maybe I have to take why take the hospital to the patient at all? Why not get the patient to the hospital? Or can I do the reverse? Can I just start taking the hospital to the people instead of patient coming to people all the time? So I'm now just thinking. So I'm just thinking, okay, now if I have access to, say, doctors who are giving a little time, and I have access to a few people, paramedics who are giving time, can I put these together and do a camp? And then see what happens. Now, the camp may result in something else and something else. And eventually I come up with a new model which says, okay, I have in effect solved the problem, but that was not my initial intention at all. So I think causation was valid because earlier problems were very clear, solutions were very clear, and the idea was an optimization problem. How do I solve this problem with the most effective use of resources?
Right.
So then causation works. The moment problems are a little bit fuzzy, solutions are unclear, then doing causation is not the optimal solution at all. So then effectuation, I think, is much more interesting.
Okay. And how is bricolage different?
Yeah, bricolage is, so once the moment you take so think of a person who is in a extremely resource impoverished or constrained environment, right? Here is a person who has no real access to resource. He's really struggling, right? This is not an environment that's supportive. It doesn't talk about it. But this person is so resourceful in nature that he starts putting together things that seemingly don't go together at all and not expect it, right? So um, look at some of these uh, people in uh, either in urban slum settings or in rural parts where access to technology is limited, power is limited. Now, these people come up with solutions. So, for example, there was this lady who, had a challenge, I don't have access to power. I don't have, regular water supply. How do I wash my clothes? Every time I've seen my mom struggling going here, let me use what I know. So I see my dad bicycling every day. It produces mechanical energy. She says, okay, that's what the drum does anyway. So she starts putting together things that you never think about putting together, and she has no access to any resources. So she takes a broken wheel, she pulls out a dabba from somewhere that can be put together, she puts a drum together. So here is a person who's stitching things up in a setting where everything is actually, she's actually piecing things. These were not resources meant for that at all. She somehow gets resources, puts them together in a way, and then you suddenly see the product. And then you say, hey, she's sitting on a cycling wheel and she's pedaling, and the wash machine is working in front of her. So all she has to do, she gets exercise and clothes thing
So
is done.
it's jugaad in the Indian terminology.
Yeah. So I mean, jugaad is an interesting phrase. The only place I think jugaad gets a little stretched as a concept. Jugaad is an interesting concept. Could get very close to jugaad. But I think the place where jugaad tends to give a wrong meaning to this whole thing is, for example, you take a plastic cover and cut off the sides and make it a bag. Now, everything you do, if it starts becoming jugaad, then all the effort of this lady who actually designed this seems like, is of no value. So I would think that as long as we don't stretch jugaad to anything that is done to do something differently, but consciously, if people like this have come up with something, then absolutely it fits with it.
Okay, so causation, bricolage, and effectuation. These are three frameworks to the mindset, entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
Um,
No, to any entrepreneurial action, I think explanation of any entrepreneurial action, I think makes.
And there'll be a mix of it, not one.
I think in practice, yeah, it's very difficult to see pure play theory in practice.
I also say entrepreneurship is a life skill.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial mindset is a life skill.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I've always said that entrepreneurship is a way of life.
Okay.
So, moment you develop that mindset, very difficult to remove it, because you suddenly experience things that you normally don't otherwise. So, for example, the 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 freedom, the autonomy, the ability to experiment, the ability to sense change. The moment you start seeing this, a person starts seeing it everywhere. It is not only when I decide, hey, I want to do business, therefore I want to see. They start looking at it in society at large. So if you look at it, their quality of life could change if they put it to proper use. So I totally agree with you. It's something that is a more of a life skill than a business venturing skill. I think it has a larger purpose.
Okay. So we were, I think I started with the question saying, are we just in applying effectuation to every other segment of entrepreneurs, and especially students here? Are we right in telling them, effectuation, bird in hand, crazy quilt, do this and it'll be fine. So are students ready to digest this uncertainty, right? I don't know where I will get.
Correct.
Bringing hospital to the patient, right? So are we right in encouraging students to start up, encouraging students to take this path of entrepreneurial mindset?
See, the only thing that students generally are starved of is, see, when you say bird in hand, that means you must have something, correct? So the quantum of what they have can be relatively less. So, for example, in the course that I run, what I also do is in the early part, I tell them, okay, let's look at what can be resources. What is bird in hand? What all birds can you have with you? So then they start saying it could be money, it could be relationships, it could be networks, it could be access. So I tell them, okay, I'll give you 3 weeks time. Why don't you go around building something? Like, just build access. So talk to alumni, talk to people you knew, your old professor, and ask, can I use the lab if I want to, and so on. So you build. So obviously everyone comes with some access. So the moment they start recognizing that they are not actually starting off at zero, then they can start combining them. The fact many times the students believe that they're actually starting at zero. And so this is one side. The other side is, since as I said before, effectuation is so intuitively appealing. So as a concept, it's very easy to understand. The moment I say, let's look at uncertainty, most of the time everything in life is actually certain. So my simple, recently I was at a conference and then they asked the same thing, first speaker goes on stage, everything in the world has become uncertain, we need to train people. Second speaker goes on, it's uncertain. And I'm like wondering what's going on here. Everybody's saying. So when I get to, I'm the fourth or something, the speaker, and I go up and ask, okay, let me ask you a bunch of questions. Okay. So did you like go to sleep last night thinking you're unsure you're going to wake up this morning? No, they were very sure they're waking up this morning. So, okay, you got up this morning and you wanted your coffee, you wanted your dress, your everything. Was it there or you were unsure? No, it was fairly certain we had it. Then when you took the car or your auto to come to this conference, were you unsure you will reach or you were sure you will reach? No, fairly sure you will reach. I said, so please tell me what was uncertain this morning for you? Nothing. And then, so it was a different setting. So I was saying, we've started using uncertain as a very casual word. So what happens when you don't know what is the meaning? Everything seems like uncertain. Just because something didn't happen the way you wanted it to happen today, that doesn't become uncertainty. So I go back to the basic, I mean, not without too much elaboration. I always tell them uncertainty is when, when can I model risk? Uncertainty becomes risk when I can model it. So if I can model it, means I have a distribution of the outcome possibilities and I have some probabilities attached to it. Now, when I don't have probabilities or I don't have outcome, I don't know what the outcomes are, or I can't put probabilities to outcomes, then I can't model, then it stays as uncertainty. So in my outcome, there should be possibility of something unknown, or I should not know what's the possibility of that occurring. When these two conditions are true, something can stay as an uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
So I think the key is to, I generally tend to push people to say, let's go back to the fundamental definition, because then you will be very careful of how you use it. Then it becomes very valuable for you.
Right.
Otherwise, what happens? It becomes like the lay person speaking. So everything is bundled up, like, competitive advantage. Okay, everything, everything can't be a competitive advantage or something like that. So I think uncertainty is to be understood because there are spaces where change is happening, and I do not know at the end of this change what could be possible ways in which the new order will be. When I do not know that, or I'm not able to put probabilities on that, then I'm in a real situation which I can capitalize on. So then I take the risk to say, hey, let me take a chance and experiment. That's why good entrepreneurs never take too much risk. They always experiment with it. Say, hey, there are 3-4 possibilities. Let's not put all our eggs there.
Yeah.
Let's do a little bit and pivot and see, and then slowly pivot quickly to the one that actually manifests. So I think that's
calculated risk, affordable. Yeah. Okay. So let me double click onto mindset. Furthermore, let's deep dive a little more.
Yeah.
How does the mindset get made? When and can you teach the mindset? And I shared with you earlier of what we know after talking to several student entrepreneurs. Some people find inspiration to start a venture early on.
Yeah.
Some people say, what I have seen in my household.
Yeah.
My parents were in government job, or society.
Yeah.
Right? Entrepreneurship was encouraged versus not encouraged. And then I thought about this. How is this mindset? When does this mindset set into an individual?
I think all of us form mindsets early in our life. And so the early years are very important, especially childhood. So I think in school, at least till we finish school, I think we are in the formative ages. I think those are really good times where people can be influenced. The only, and I'm being very careful about saying this, is I'm not still very sure we must teach entrepreneurship in high school, but I feel we must teach entrepreneurial mindset formation in school. The problem we are doing is we are not spending too much on the mindset. We are spending a lot more time on venture creation. We do business model, business plan. It's entertaining, no doubt. But at school, I think the focus should be more on what you just said. It should be on mindset creation. Now, how do we create that mindset?
Yeah.
I think we should not teach. I think that's the first thing. Because I'm growing more and more sure about it.
Okay.
Is that the more we teach, the lesser is going to get created. Because that's not how mindsets get created. Mindsets, if we go back to the definition, a mindset is a set of attitudes, and attitudes are always built in response to experience.
Okay.
So that means I need to create more and more experiences for our students so that the students in turn can form the right uh, attitudes.
Attitude.
Now, to do that, there is an in-between part where the faculty's role is very important, the educator's role. And that is post-experience, helping the young mind to make the right meaning of the experience. So, what we need is more educators who can help students reflect on their experience and guide them in the reflection process to make them think about it. I think that is one place where we really need help. Second, I think is the earlier step is creating the right experiences. So, for example, like, when I was doing design thinking recently in a workshop, one student, senior member actually, walks up and says, you keep talking, it's so human-centered, empathy is really important. How do I develop empathy? So I said, my God, nobody asked these questions actually. That's why workshops keep going. So when he asked, I was like, okay, how do you develop empathy? I told him very simple. Do you know like any, children's hospital or something in your locality? He said, yeah. I said, why don't you just go and spend a night sitting in the emergency ward? Don't do anything. Just go sit there. Just watch what happens. So I said, so he asked, what will happen? I said, go and do it because I did it. When you do it, something changes. Suddenly you start seeing the world in a very different way.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to do a UN development program for West African entrepreneurs some years ago. So I did the usual opportunity identification session and I told them come up with opportunities because these are real entrepreneurs. They have to go back and create or grow their enterprises. So I was really inspiring them with good examples and things like that. And then at the end of the day, they present and then they give me very, very normal examples like, I want to start that bubble water distribution, bubble top. And another says, I want to start this slipper distribution. I was like, I said, my God, what sort of an educator am I? My whole day I shout my lungs out, give you big inspirational cases. And then at the end of the day, that's all I'm able to inspire. So I was a bit disappointed with myself. I said, oh God, I could not even do this much. So in the evening at dinner, I really wanted to understand why I could not do it. So I sat with them at dinner and just asking them, hey, why do you want to come up with this? Could you come up with a bigger idea? He said, no, all your ideas are amazing. Actually, we'd love to do that. But actually, the place where I come from is a bit different. So then can I explain it to you? And then he started explaining. So the guy who wants to do the distribution of water, he made a statement when he was explaining the situation. He said, in my locality, people, especially children, drink water from wherever they see water. I couldn't actually make sense for a long time what he meant by it. It took me a while till he explained in a little more gross way what he meant by it. I was shaken for a second. I said, oh my God, what am I even thinking? Because I could not think that people will drink water from these type of places. Because then I realized that night how privileged I am in my life that I didn't even know that this can occur. And so that night, as a human being, I changed forever. I said, never make an assumption about the person sitting on the other side. Because that person said, I don't want my children, my youngsters to fall sick again. Therefore, I want to just distribute clean drinking water at the lowest price possible. It can be simple business, but it's actually affecting lives in his area. The reason why I judged him so quickly at the presentation, simply because I put my lens on my worldview onto him. And I said, okay, then I changed as a person. Why did I change? Because I got affected by that interaction, that experience. So how do you, so I, now after that, I have been extremely empathetic. to every entrepreneur I meet, I am extremely careful to listen to them. I understand the context completely. They always get, so you take so long to give advice. I'm like, no, I really need to understand everything because I don't want to jump to this because I've done this in the past. So I think creating those opportunities. So taking students out on trips, telling students to go out, on, walk around in areas where there are challenges, meet people where there are challenges, let them go and interact. I think instead of having classroom based entrepreneurship education, I think we really have to go beyond the classroom, create experiences. I think that's the first step. And then do the second part is very important for the educators when they are back in the classroom to spend time discussing about it, highlighting the importance of, reflection, meaning making.
Connecting it to, the meaning, So I think in the classroom when we teach entrepreneurship, students will come up with these small ideas. And for quite some time, I was also mostly in favor of doing a significant small first venture, right? Build something, sell it. There should be a good market potential. Very recently in my course, some students started chips vending. Simple. In my hostel, I'm going to stock up chips. At night, the vending machine in the hostel is out of stock. The canteen is, far away, and Himachal is a cold place. So, and then these people are making their end semester presentation. I'm like, come on, I'm so embarrassed, right? I'm going around talking about student entrepreneurship, and in my course, students are just selling chips, and they're not even selling. They're just putting in a box in their hostel room. Whosoever wants it, come take it, and here is a scanner, pay it. Lazy, right? But when I connect to what you are saying, create meaningful experiences. When they made the presentation, they won't stop talking. They were saying, sir, what we learned, it's not about chips.
Correct.
It's about what we learned. What did we learn? Female students, they prefer this chip. The male students, they like this specific, kurkure flavor, right? And I'm like, okay, fine. You're learning something. You're reflecting on it, right? And that was much more meaningful.
Correct.
Fine.
Correct.
And sir, the problem is not the availability of chips. People want the chips, but the demand is actually at 1 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
And then there is no chips available. So we are meeting an unmet demand. Okay. So I was impressed by the learnings that they were drawing. And the course is over. Their venture continues. So what a lazy venture, but they are stocking, they restock, they talk to people, and then they're having fun alongside, right? So that is creating an experience from them, which can probably help them build an attitude towards entrepreneurship.
Correct. I think totally agree. I totally agree. Very nice to see you say this because I think students need to do something, and that doing can be small things. Because in a educational setup, in a campus, in a structured curriculum environment, there are other constraints as well. So if they can create those experiences in small ways, but draw bigger meaning out of it, then tomorrow when they go out into the world, I think they will use it to amazing.
Another team, I must say this, another team started selling vada paos. Okay, now they have to fry the vadas, right?
Okay.
Make the vada. They got the material and everything. They have induction in their hostel, so they would fry it there. The inside they brought in. So it's not our vada pav. What we've learned is oil is the most costly ingredient.
Amazing.
And because it is costly, the shops outside, they continue to reuse it. And then they search the chemistry behind it. The whatever, carcinogen, whatever, some effect, right? That it becomes more dense and the chemistry in the oil changes when you reuse it. And they were really concerned about it. So they were thinking, now, how do we solve it? Because we also eat outside. So these small experiences create a lot of insights for the
and I think it brings about real change. When the person really feels that, then they will start becoming conscious of what they eat. Then they will start solving those problems as well. Absolutely. I think experience is the key. I think we need to.
One of the researches that I read or I found it referenced somewhere said entrepreneurship, when taught, can actually bring down the entrepreneurial inclination. And especially amongst female students.
No, I think in general, I think this whole does education lead to more entrepreneurs? I think has very mixed evidence.
Okay.
So if you look at even the 2018, 19, there have been some meta reviews and all that. We are not able to come to any conclusion. So truly, there are places where, as you rightly said, it's actually worse off than what they were by teaching. And in some places, of course, there's some small uptick, but largely education, the traditional sense, entrepreneurship education, has not had many and meaningful impact on venture creation. The second thing, I think a lot of the studies actually measure intention after the course, which I think is a beaten metric. Because intention, and it's also like, you run a course and then you measure it. Sometimes this intention could be just, the thrill of being in the
Yeah,
course. So,
temporary.
yeah, and it could also be because of the person running the course. So you could be so inspiring that people just get a high.
Yeah.
And then after like 3 months, there's nothing left in it. So there are also studies that say that it's a very temporary effect. It stays for a little while. And if you don't follow up with sessions later, it dies down very quickly. And having just one or two outcome variables, largely one outcome variable, which is entrepreneurial intention, I think is a very shallow way to measure whether education is working or not.
Okay.
Interestingly, there are very few studies that measure attitudinal change.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, very few studies that actually go into, whether that mindset shift has taken place. Has there change in attitude at all? See, intention is a very subtle thing to capture. So, and it's also self-reported. There is no behavioral component to back it. So it's a murky variable. I think we need more outcome variables to be measured, and slightly more longitudinal. That means repeated measures design, which they use in psychology. You don't find too many studies like that in education. So I think we need more studies like that. So we need more repeated measures design. We need more longitudinal studies. We need studies that measure multiple outcome variables to decide whether education is working or not.
What should we measure?
So as I said, first thing I would love to measure is attitude change.
Attitude.
Because that's what we are trying to build actually. So that is clearly one. Second is I would like to look at actions. Like behaviors is clearly one thing that we can look at. We can look at, say, experiments. So what sort of experiments, the nature of experiments. We could look at propensity to risk and things like that specifically. How has it changed? We could look at resource pool that the person has increased or decreased.
Okay.
Because these are the things that matter for entrepreneurship. So,
Yeah.
and then eventually, yes, have they started a venture could also be one. Is the venture doing well?
Right.
Those could be. But I think there are a lot of host of in between, intermittent variables that I think we should measure more. So these are some that definitely come to my mind, which I think we need to really look at. Just looking at intention, I think, is a weak metric to assess.
So let us reverse engineer this. Okay. If really what we should be doing in our course is to help students develop attitude, take action, experiments, propensity to risk, and increasing the resource pool, right? If this is what we want to achieve, then what kind of activities, what should be my pedagogy in the course?
Yeah. So off late, I will talk about it a little later, because it's more to do with educator development that I'm now very interested in as a research space. But what I'm beginning to feel is we need to move more towards action-oriented education. So which means we don't want to do too many lecture-based sessions at all. I don't think our students need to be taught what is an opportunity, what's a business model canvas. I think they're smart enough to figure it out themselves, right? You leave them for 2 hours, they'll figure it out better than us. That's my belief now. These guys are really smart. So what they need is feedback that what they've done is not good enough, or they are missing something fundamentally, or they are misaligning various parameters within a single framework and things like that. So deeper feedback, being challenged, those are the things we need. So one is it should be very action oriented. Second, it has to have some sort of a going out of the campus situation. So one of the things I tried, seems to work, is to try to see if you can work with a startup at an early stage. Don't need to come up with any new ideas. You can do that later. You find a startup that you enjoy, a space that you like, and go deep into their business and critically understand and rebuild the pitch deck, saying this is how it is currently, and now tell me where you see this venture 3 years from now. and why.
Okay.
So what happens? These guys just tear it apart. I mean, they say, sir, this is not there, that is not there, he's not done this, she's not done this. I say, then now you tell me, okay, now that you know this is going to die in 2 years, why do you think the guy is still running it? No, so he's crazy. This guy is just crazy. He's just running. So then I say, okay, now let's sit and fix. Now that you're learning things in the course, now you fix. Suppose you were running this venture. What are the things that you will change? Now you start building a fresh set, and then let's redo this whole thing. So they do this, and then I make them present it back to the founder.
Okay.
It doesn't go well many times because they think like these guys, and see, they have no commitment, they don't have skin in the game and all that. But that also brings an advantage because they're so objective to it, because they're so cut off from the situation.
Yeah.
They can look at it. So some founders love it because they say our initial reactions in the market has been slow. Now I understand, maybe I should have pivoted early.
Yeah.
So why didn't I do it now? And through this, the students actually gain access to an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
They would have called 3-4 customers. So in the process, they've actually upped their resource base, in the sense, without their own knowledge, they've contacted a VC.
Right.
So they also talk to multiple stakeholders. So they call up a VC and ask, will you invest in a startup like this? So things like that. So in a large class that I used to run, we used to break them up into groups. So we end up talking to, like, 80, 90 startups in a year, in a term. So, and all this is brought back to class and discussed. So everyone hears each other out, and then we are challenging each other. So what happens is that, somebody sees some startup is really going to do well because they are really poised for growth. Whereas somebody else, is just in living dead situation. So then students are able to get a whiff of what factors actually drive success.
Right.
And then they find out that a lot of it is actually very individual. So they say, while this person keeps talking, sir, about, it should be a learning organization, the moment I say something, he snaps in the call. So how do I make sense of this?
Right.
So then we ask ourselves, hey, but how are we when we do this? So when somebody gives us feedback, what do we do?
Yeah.
Then they say, oh yeah, even I am saying it's sort of like that. But now I've become cognizant of that. So the next time I'm going into the field, I'm going to be a little bit more open to say, hey, maybe I should listen one little bit more, right? I should be open to feedback. So I think this is the way to, I think, enable us students to learn.
Okay.
It's more interesting. The classes become more interesting, one. Second is, 50% of the class over a period of time will lose interest because they'll think it's just doing the assignment, right? I have to meet a person. It's too much work for a 2 credit course. I could have just submitted 2 assignments and gotten away or something like that. But I think the key is, as with anything entrepreneurship, you're not going to have 100% anyway. I mean, so if I get like 10% of the class, right to the end with the same level of excitement, I think we've served our purpose in that term.
And it could happen with other courses as well, right? Every other course on science, on management, you see, everyone doesn't end up picking up that profession, right?
Exactly. Just like any other profession, yeah. And we don't want everyone to be an entrepreneur either.
Right.
So I think, so we allow that natural selection, self-selection to happen, because entrepreneurship is self-selection at the end of the day. So let them choose it. So when they see the difficulties, some people say, no, I don't even want to work with a startup because it's just too chaotic. Good. I mean, just the fact that you self-selected yourself out of it is also a very good outcome of the course.
Yeah.
So when somebody says, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, I always tell them, it's very good. I mean, I'm so glad you came to this course, because now at least you won't make the mistake of becoming one. Because then, it's a very difficult process. And when we talk about failure, I will talk to you. It's so easy to tell a person, go out and fail. You can learn. Learning doesn't come out of failure. It just doesn't come.
Oh, really? Learning doesn't come out of failure?
Yeah, no way. Just think of it. When you fail, what is your first reaction?
You're disappointed.
Absolutely disappointed. You're heartbroken. Your emotions are running high. When a person is so emotionally disturbed, your cognitive system is switched off. Now you're telling that person, no, think back. You can learn from your mistake. I mean, so I have now begun to realize it is not a natural process at all, because the person is so disturbed emotionally. That means the emotional system is hyperactive. And so the cognition system is simply not accessible. So when somebody comes to me after failure, I give them a long hearing and I say, okay, yeah, good, very good. You know what to do. Life is bad. The world is bad. I say everything that they want to hear, because that's when the emotional system actually calms down. Only when the emotional system calms down, you have access to the cognitive system. So the trouble is this whole idea that, if I push people into failure, they will learn is I think, a very, very misunderstood concept. I think creating situations of intelligent failure is very good, but you have to ensure that there is a system after the failure that takes care to ensure the person is not very emotionally disturbed by it. So this is very critical. Otherwise, what happens is you have to go through that whole process. It's like that famous research of, I'm reminded of this, this grief research of, I think, Kubler-Ross, very famous book, Stages of Grief and Dying. So it's like a nice 5-stage process of degeneration. So it's only at the end of the 5th stage that you really start thinking, and it's only there that learning can really come out.
So when we say, failure so far, okay, this is what I've been telling the students.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to fail fast.
Yeah.
You have to fail fast. Do your first very small venture.
Yeah.
And I will wait to hear that you have failed. It has not worked out.
Okay.
Because it's great to fail now.
Yeah.
Because when you will invest more resource in
Yeah.
a bigger venture, then you'll be more heartbroken.
Yeah.
So my job or my aim is to help you start your first venture in my course.
Yeah.
Right? And I would want to see you fail.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
am I following?
No. So I think what you have to, and I don't want to make suggestions now, but I think one thing that I have also read recently, I think it was Edmondson's recent work on saying different types of failure. So one of them is, I think, this setting up intelligent failures. So I think we have to orchestrate failure for our students. So we set them up for failure. So then what happens is, you're going to fail anyway. So then the focus is, because then your emotional, so what we are doing is we are carefully saying that, okay, don't allow your emotions to run high, because now we are creating system of, let us set up intelligent possibilities of failure. So if you see, then sense and record it. So then you can be a little bit more cognizant of it. So instead of saying any failure is okay, any form of failure is okay, I think we need to understand the design of what we are trying to do. Is this a failure that is worth making, so that you learn something from it?
I'm still not able to digest it. Everyone goes around. You hear thought leaders, business leaders, right? I learned from my failures. I have failed so many times. Right? Michael Jordan. I've missed, hundreds of, thousands of my shots, and then I've sort of gotten these many. So we've heard all of that, and now you're saying you don't learn from failure, or are you saying that after failure there is a process that has to take place? Only after that, if you are able to calm down your emotional state, then your cognitive sort of abilities again liven up, and then you can learn.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to say. So it's not like as soon as I fail, I can automatically learn from the failure. There is first a small period or a time that could be short or long depending on the impact, but there is a small gap between failure and the process of reflection to begin.
Okay.
That needs to be carefully orchestrated. The second is, I think, in many cases, you need another person to jointly reflect and learn from this failure. So a lot of people don't talk about that person who helped them learn from that situation. We can call them mentors. Unfortunately, mentor is also a misused word today. But in the real sense, mentor is somebody who can really help them see themselves and go through that process. So there is a delay. And second is, there has to be an approach to learning from failure. Otherwise, it can just get into this whole emotional thing and create a wreck.
Okay. So we were saying, how do we measure the outcomes of entrepreneurship education? And we said attitude, actions, experiments, propensity to take risk, and increasing resource. These are some things which can tell us whether the student has learned in the course. And if they develop these things, then probably we are in the right direction. And my question was, how do we build this? And you said, one of the experiments or activity could be we tear apart an existing business and we give them feedback. This is one way. Do you do more activities in your course, or have you heard, more activities which we can use? I think this will be really good suggestions to educators out there.
Yeah. So the other is team-based development. So instead of allowing people to work as individuals or on ideas, we focus a lot more on team development. Team development or team-based models of entrepreneurship are becoming popular today because I think a lot of people are realizing that it's a team sport. So if we focus a lot more on the team, then what happens? The team bonding sometimes even changes the opportunity completely. So they start with something and then they realize that we as a team are good. So let's figure out what is interesting and do it, because even though this one did not take off or didn't work well,
Yeah.
we have actually formed a winning team.
Hmm.
Now with this team, we can crack anything.
Hmm.
So then they pick up really good things. So I think one of the other outcomes which could be, which I have seen also, is this team-based
So
sort of
that's
approach.
resource pool,
Sort
right?
of, yeah,
You
sort
build
of building
flag,
on resources
yeah.
and things like that. For risk, I think we have a lot of activities that have been created of late. I'm seeing it at different places where, simple things like a ring toss can teach you a lot. Or we actually created an outdoor, we used an SSB help from retired SSB people who used to be in the staff selection board, saying them, hey, what are the things you do? And then we figured out that some of those things actually relate to this. So we actually constructed something on the grounds of our campus, and we actually make our students do it now. So in
a physical
physical
training.
exercise. So they actually climb and they cross this thing, and they have to do it in teams because you can't do most of this alone. So then through this process, then we have somebody actually making note of who helped, how they work, and things like that. And then we do a self-assessment. So some of these activities help them understand their nature better. So some of them realize that, too risky environments are not for me because I feel very uncomfortable there. And we tell them that it is okay. And for people who can do it, but we also educate them that when you are in a team, you actually did way beyond what you thought you will do. Did you realize that? They said, yes, we did, but we knew that that person will hold me if I fall. So then you know that, okay, now it's important for you to figure out that team before you get into this risky action, so you can stretch your capacity. So I think these kind of simple games and tools are also coming in very handy. Of course, what you said is the classic approach, is to set up something and run it for a year or a term, and then close it down if you don't want. But some people eventually create entities out of it. So that's another approach. So I think these are some of the approaches that I have heard of.
I think campus or class-based small enterprises, you don't have to necessarily see them as long-term ventures. And early on, I used to teach BTech students, and that is where I expected them, really put them through a hard time, saying, build something which is real, right? And now, as I talk to MBA students more, I realize they don't have enough time, and maybe everyone is not from the technical background. I thought, experience is more important. And even through this podcast series only, Professor Prasad from Mumbai came, and his philosophy is becho seeko. Why are you wasting time, students' time, getting them to build something? Give them something ready-made and help them experience selling. That itself has a lot to teach, right? So these classroom ventures or campus ventures, they will be very short-lived, but with the purpose of creating lived experiences.
Just to create a debate of sorts on this topic, because now selling is a small part of entrepreneurship. I don't disagree. I'm a very big fan of even MBA students taking sales jobs. But I think entrepreneurship is a lot about value creation. And therefore, I would kind of second what you said, is that build anything. It's okay, but build. Because if you don't build, then I think the essence of entrepreneurship is lost. So I think focusing too much on trading, which has been our strength as a country, is also should not become our weakness. I think we have to shift out of the trading mindset to a building mindset. And that means it doesn't matter what I build. Like you said, make chips, no problem. I don't mind. Like we do this very similar, something called Paisa Vasool on campus. Students bid for stalls, and then they set up the stall, and then they get about 8 hours to do the sales on campus. And so this year we did. So there was this guy from a family business, and he and his friend set up a stall. He was selling pakora. And so he said, I said, what is this? And he said, sir, you won't understand, just see. And you won't believe, every 1.5 hours, he was stock out. Okay. He got paneer, high quality paneer from the nearby farm. And he got oil, as you said, they didn't reheat oil. And then he made bundles. He made different new versions of it. And who was doing this? The students themselves. They did not bring a help to fry. They didn't bring a help to cut. So they made interesting things. They got creative. So then they did customer co-creation. So they did interesting things. So what happened in the process is they negotiated with a vendor. they hard sold themselves. They got it at a discount. They came. They had to estimate how much they will sell for an evening.
Yeah.
So they thought they'll sell X kilos for the whole 8 hours. They sold out in 1.5 hours. So they realized that their estimation was wrong. Then they went bought again. Then this time they bought something else along with it. So what happens through the process? They are learning so much.
Yeah.
So I'm not against. So only condition I told them is you shouldn't resell anything.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't buy something from outside, come here, put a stall and sell it.
You have to add value to
Add
it.
value. You do anything is okay. I don't care. But do something more. Because if you don't build anything, you add something to it. I said at least put chocolate sauce on the ice cream and sell. No? So it's like to that extent, I said you have to learn to say that I can actually stretch myself. I can build something.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. Pure sales selling will result in a more trading mindset. So what will happen is we'll always end up finding gaps and filling them. We will not create those big new opportunities for the future. We need people to think on both angles. I think trading mindset comes naturally. I mean, that's much easier to develop.
And maybe use it as one of the
Correct.
few activities,
Correct.
right? To begin with, the easiest thing is,
Yeah.
we say, go to the customer, build, measure, learn, right?
Correct.
How fast can you
Can
go
you
to the
go? Yeah,
customer?
yeah.
Can you, rather than building something on your own
Can
and
you start
customer
by
not wanting it,
yeah.
go out, talk to people, build
Yeah,
that confidence.
yeah.
That's all. And it's a small activity,
Yeah,
one day
yeah.
activity. And later on, you think of something.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm reminded of this Vada Pav team.
Yeah.
Vada Pav is, one product. They also made a chutney alongside,
Okay.
right? And then, sir, we realized that people were asking for chutney. That was a separate revenue line.
Revenue.
That we
Yeah.
So such kind of
Yeah.
ideas, they see in action,
Yeah.
and that inspires them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So we were talking about mindset,
Yeah.
entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
And then from there, we went into this discussion of, how do we
Yeah.
do this in the class? How do we
I
help
think
them build it?
one of the other things that probably needs more attention is how parents deal with children when they think along these lines. I think a lot of parents actually put off or switch off this because they are not aware. They think this is a lot of parents, I think, still are very conservative in their mindset. So instead of, they would prefer you go work for a while and then come back to, you do something on your own, but not now. You settle and then you do it. And by the time you settle, you have 100 other things and it's lost.
Yeah.
So I think parents also need to understand that the world has changed a little bit and entrepreneurship is genuinely a good career option. I'm not saying every single child should do it, but when you see the spark, at least the mindset part, when they raise questions, when they bring about interesting happenings, don't stop them, Instead of that, encourage them to at least think about it in a creative way. That I think will be a good exercise. Maybe ask them to maintain a logbook of ideas, or take them to interesting new places which normally they wouldn't have gone as an offbeat experience, because then they become more sensitive to noticing changes. These are things I think parents also can play a small part.
How do we, should we start doing parent-teacher meetings?
I'm a big fan of it actually. So I would love to do it. I never miss one with my kid. But I think it's very important that we do something for parents, because I think parents are need inputs.
What do we do? How do let's design an intervention or an idea of how would we engage with parents?
Yeah. So one of the things I think we should do is, when we do things like these events on campus, when we are actually running this, if we can get some of them into this event just to even be part of it.
Maybe,
exposure.
The Paisa Vasool, when the stalls are happening, they should.
If we can get them in, that would be lovely. So we've started a family business and entrepreneurship program this year, as part of our 1 year full time, where we get students from family business background. So there I am actually having a closure event in term 7 when they finish the program. Before they go back to their family businesses, we are having an event where I'm going to invite all the parents in, and the students by then would have done all the coursework and built a plan of what they're going to do when they head back into the family business. And they will actually present this in front of their mentors, their faculty, and the parents. My goal is to tell the parent that your kid has actually gone from a boy to a man now. So you have to start listening to that, from a girl to a woman. I mean, they have built identity, they have ideas. Why don't we, allow them to blossom, rather than quickly dismissing the fact that you first work for a while, you prove to me again that you still treat them like kids. So I think it brings credibility, legitimacy. The kid feels more happy.
Absolutely. No, I was couple of days back writing a chapter on mentoring,
Uh-huh.
mentoring philosophy.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, these were the ideas that you have to start treating entrepreneurs, no matter they are 10 years experienced or they are in second year of their graduation.
Yeah.
We have to treat them like a real person,
Yeah.
like an entrepreneur,
Correct.
and build that expectation
Yeah.
from them
Yeah.
that you are expected to behave professionally, you're expected to take accountability,
Absolutely.
you have to show up for the meeting,
Yeah.
prep for it, send an agenda.
Yeah.
It'll take a couple of iterations.
Correct. Correct.
But when you start treating them like they say, dress up for the job you want,
Absolutely.
right? You have to treat them as an
Yeah, yeah,
entrepreneur, and then they will become one.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
it's so hard to get through to parents.
Yeah, yeah.
There
It
is
is.
this
It is.
whole historic context
Yeah, yeah.
of, and a lot of it comes from your own mental models
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
built, right?
yeah.
How I was raised,
Correct.
all those connotations in my
Yeah,
mind
yeah.
are going to shape up my own parenting.
True.
And I have to really get into a reflective space to
Yeah.
understand, what is right parenting,
Right.
right? And
Right.
and as father of two, I'm struggling with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No.
How I was raised versus how I should.
Yeah.
So how do we break those barriers in parents, right?
Yeah.
First of all, accessing them, where
Correct.
we said maybe one idea is to bring them to a demonstration
Yeah.
session.
Yeah.
But then how do you tell them that you have to become better mentors?
Yeah. No, I don't think it's an easy problem at all. And I think we can acknowledge that as well ourselves. But uh, so one of the things which is easy to practice is to spend some time listening to the child, because I think they come with so many ideas
Yeah.
and questions, and our immediate reaction is to become instrumental in nature. So for example, Arey, you can do all this later, why don't you finish your homework or your studies?
Yeah.
So we go great lengths at home to listen to our kid when she's talking, she wants to share something and different experience, saying it's okay, you can do that later. Why don't you tell us what happened? So I think the more time we can spend talking to them and allowing them to express themselves without us judging.
Yeah.
Because if we start judging that experience, immediately we see from the next time they think twice to share.
Yeah.
They are becoming
shut down.
discrimination.
Yeah.
They think like, oh, will dad get upset if I say this, or mom will get upset, so don't say.
Yeah.
So then that process starts. So if we can keep that curiosity alive by saying that, so sometimes we pick papers and we are scribbling. She writes something on the paper. I say it's very good. She writes in my notebook and I'm saying I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to strike it away because it's nice. It's very interesting. Why did you do this? And then there's some reasoning she has. And then I realize that actually there's a reasoning behind. Now, because I'm looking at it as, somebody older, I'm looking at it, what's the use? I tell myself, don't ask that question, because that's the question that deters you from this path.
Yeah.
So I think little practices of saying, let's spend time. So even on campus, I spend time, sometimes I spend a lot of time one-on-one with the kids, just sitting and listening to their stories. Where have they come from? Why do they? So they have a lot of questions in their head. And they want to talk to somebody. And then they say, like you were saying this morning, you spend a lot of time listening to these kids in campus. Spending 10 minutes can make a huge difference to them, because they just want to, feel reassured that this is not wrong.
Yeah.
So just being free, going for a walk, thinking of ideas. So they say, if I come up with ideas anyway, I can't start, sir. Why should I come up with ideas? I said, but coming up with ideas has nothing to do with starting anyway. You're going to waste one sheet of paper to write it and give it to me next week. What's the problem? I'll fund it if you want. Don't do anything with it. So what? Give it to me. I'll do something with it. So I make it fun and I tell them it's okay. You want to do it, right? Just do it. Right? But what the training has happened is, don't do things that are not useful, or useful means what? Just it results in some good job, or if it's doesn't give you a few marks, don't do it. So I tell them, just forget about it. It's okay. Just let's do something else. So I think that practice, it's a practice.
Yeah.
So it's not about thinking about it, it's about doing something about it. So here it's clearly doing, its action. I think parents have to act. So even if we can get a small group of parents to do it, I think once they experience it, I think they will go around spreading it to others. So
in several conversations, we've had discussions on parenting. In my last visit here at River University, I got hold of some students, went to hostel. We spent 1.5 hours, 5, 10 students sitting. And a lot of these discussions were around, my parents are saying this, my parents are saying that. You don't listen to us. Hey, I wanted to become a boxer. I wanted to become a musician. I wanted to do this, but they're like, no, this is not what you should do. You should come back to either family business or you should take up a government job and so on. they have these unresolved issues with their parents, which is stopping them.
Yeah.
And they're so dissonant and they're angry about this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And this is not only entrepreneurship, but this is,
In
building a
general.
person kind of discussion, right?
Yeah.
So what do we need? How do we handle? And this is our youth.
Yeah. This,
And we
yeah.
have the highest proportion of youth
Yeah.
population, right, in our country.
Yeah.
And, we are saying that we have to become top startup
Correct.
destination. Youth has to start up.
Correct.
But they are, so confused about basic
Absolutely.
choices when they are 18, right?
Yeah.
What do we do about it?
I think the only thing that needs to be done is, I think children need time. Parents need to find time to listen to kids. I think that is the singular thing that's missing. First and foremost, it's a basic hygiene. A lot of parents, I mean, it's very sorry state today is that we are galloping as a country, no doubt, economically, but I think a lot of other things are being slipped. So one of the things is, the youth, they need time. They want people who can listen, right? And if parents will be the best to do that, but when they don't do that, these people look outside. And then if they don't find right mentors, they are wayward in their careers. So one of the things I think as parents we can do is spend time listening to our kids. The only thing we have to be careful about, and this comes more from my teacher, is don't be judgmental about them in any sense. Whatever they say, it's okay, right? Whatever questions they ask, give them answers. It's okay. Even if you don't know, it's fine. Just say something, because what they want is to ask questions. So allow them to speak up, allow them to acknowledge their problems, acknowledge their difficulties. I had a student who had a affair with another girl. He broke up. He couldn't speak about it to his dad because his dad thought it was silly to be feeling sad about these things.
Yeah.
He kept saying, "You're a man. How can you break?" And he said, "So my dad doesn't understand that, even men have feelings." So all I was doing was sitting and listening to this guy saying, yeah, I mean, you're not having feelings based on whether you're man or woman. You're having feelings because you're a human being.
Yeah.
You will have feelings. So it's okay. And then, after a few months, his mother calls up and says, he feels very, very comfortable. He keeps he's speaking to his mother very often. He's very comfortable talking with you. I hope it's okay. I'm like, that's why we are here. So it's fine. And then upon graduation, I actually met both the parents and he got a good job. He settled down. But I think the idea there was to tell them that, why don't you spend a little bit more time? Because the reason why the parents have this worry is they're so concerned about the careers 10 years later. So because of that, they sacrifice a lot of life today for the sake of outcomes tomorrow. And that is leading to this. That's my hunch, that this is forcing them to think very instrumentally about kids. And the risk that we carry is when they grow up, they'll be very broken as.
Absolutely. And, that's what's making me think, do we need alternative mentoring education models? First of all, the parents, they may not have that capacity. We are, eventually, first of all, the parents are busy in their personal business model, right? How do we make money? Right? How do we sustain? Roti, kapda, makan. That's the physiological needs that you have. And while you're busy there, you don't have time for to listen to kids, which is what you are suggesting. And when you go to an educational institute, college, school, you are being processed in batches, right? Again, you are seen as objects, not individuals. Nobody has time to listen to you. In the class, teachers are actually shouting you to shut up. Right? That gets ingrained in your behavior. The initiative is revoked, right? Because teacher says shut up, so I'm not going to speak now. And in colleges, again, we are harping on exams and marks. Those, when we are trying to chase a scale, we are missing the real human element, which builds people into better human beings.
Absolutely.
And then they become better leaders or business people or entrepreneurs or professionals or scientists, right?
No, I think even as faculty members, I was having this conversation with a senior faculty recently, and so he was very particular that some of the students did not, respond very well in class. They have to be failed. So I keep asking, what's the purpose of this education? Is it to fail? Is it to find out who are the 5 people who would be failed? Or can I find a way to, motivate this guy to come at least to the basic level of expectation of skill that I have out of this person at the end of the course? If that is the focus, then I'm going to work very, very hard to ensure that they at least rise up to a certain level. Right? So, as you rightly said, if the focus of education is transformation, then the metric of marks is completely wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think we need change in metrics for sure, because we are measuring all the wrong things, and our overemphasis on data and data analytics is only making things worse,
Yeah.
because we're measuring what's easy. So,
Yeah.
and output metrics are always easy to measure, and so we always keep measuring output. So another interesting conversation I had, students have a lot of FOMO, when they get jobs. Others are getting better salaries. I'm not getting it. He got a better role. She got a better this thing. So I normally, and this is something which I always tell students, they know it's like I repeat myself to boredom, saying, I am a lawyer, you are a singer, she's a dancer. But the metric we use to measure who's successful is salary.
Yeah.
I said, but one chose to be a faculty, another chose to be a dancer, another chose to be a CEO. Now, do you even have to measure to understand who's most successful? It's the CEO, because he gets stock options, he gets share of profit. The faculty is not even in the race, and then this dancer is in the middle. So, but I said, do you understand that each of us can be successful in our own ways, because each of us chose this by our own choice. So what I tell students very clearly is, you make a choice of who you want to be, and then decide what is the metric that measures your success. Because if we start making a single metric, cost to company is the metric across all people, then we are making a terrible mistake. That's why today civil engineers want to work in an IT company, because they think it's CTC, that's the measure of success.
That's
But he's not thinking, I'm going to make the next bridge that's going to, stand for the next 100 years. No, they're not thinking about it. They don't want to construct the building that will last a generation. No, they're not even thinking of it. They think only in terms of that person gets X amount, I'm getting so little, and I have to stand in the sun and he sits in the AC. I mean, so we are comparing all the wrong metrics. And it's like, using GDP to decide whether we are really a
happy country.
Yeah. And then we measure happiness also. And then we say, okay, now we have to have a single measure for happiness, obviously. So then we measure that and then say, okay, we are happy too. So I think one thing that India has to be careful, at least especially with the given youth and demographic advantage or whatever we have, is that we don't want to become a rich country in the way the other countries have become rich, because the rich countries, that is the wealthy countries, let's not call them rich, the people who have a lot of wealth, material wealth, also have created a whole bunch of psychological, the problems of the rich, as they call. So we don't want to become rich at the same way, because we have to learn from what others have done. And I think we should be very careful in doing some of the things that you currently raise as questions. They need to be addressed now before we become rich. Otherwise, we are just going to have a industry that deals in therapy, and we're just going to have other sorts of problems, loneliness and depression and things like that. We don't want that as a society. So
and broken people
yeah.
because they are not heard, because they are not mentored, and also I think we are also focusing a lot only on professional growth
Yes.
or education marks and so on, and we've completely ignored health, happiness, right?
Exactly.
And Raj, you've been in the Nordic region, right?
Yeah.
And I've read and heard, Nordic region, they focus more on happiness, fulfillment,
Yeah.
rather than, wealth creation and so on. Is that real? Tell us a little bit more. And are there some models that we can adopt from there?
Yeah. While they have their own share of challenges that they are facing, but I think in general, one of the things I noticed, I lived for a few years in Norway, and every country is a little bit different, even in the Scandinavian region. But when I was in Norway, one of the things, Norway, Sweden, and that part of the world, and then I used to travel a little bit to the US. And what I noticed is a lot of family time is spent together. So if you notice, one of the things, once I remember we were sitting in Dubai or somewhere in the airport, my wife remarked, we were sitting and we were having our meal, and there were a few others. And then she looked at this little family sitting together and, having some fun together, playing a game. And even by look, you could have realized they are from the Scandinavian region. Okay. But my wife remarked that, look at their action. And then you know that this is a group that's come from somewhere there, because they spend a lot of time, I think, do this, spend time together. They go out on picnics. They cook, do things together. So I think and I think the society values it. Therefore, it's accommodated. So, for example, the systems there are flexible for it. So, if somebody has wants to go out on something, I think they're able to find the time and space to do it.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to take all this with a lot of salt, not a pinch of salt, is because, of course, they're in a very different stage of development. Their social security systems are different. So they have a lot of advantages which can enable them to do it.
Right.
We are probably not there yet. But I think as a society, India has never been, in my opinion, a poor society at all. Because India is always, because in India, the social fabric is to help. So it's never, it's not that my maid is a very poor person. We will always do what we can to help our maid also when she has difficulties. We don't want her kids to not be educated. Everyone does this in India. So I think sharing is a very common thing. Giving is a very common thing in this country. I think some of our traditional values, which actually kept society together and healthy, even without wealth, should be retained as we become wealthy. Because I think otherwise we are foregoing what held us together when we didn't have the wealth. We shouldn't give that up when just for the sake of wealth. We should retain this and generate the wealth. Then we become really, really a a strong society.
So then we are arriving at ultimately societal change. We have to embrace our culture, traditions, and now I think also with us becoming more modern, technology has a big role to play, right? We can see other cultures, other countries have access to huge content out there. We are consuming left, right, and center, right? That is changing our perceptions. I was listening to something and it was mentioned that earlier the main agenda used to be who will stand with me, my tribe, my community, my religion. And now you are standing alone because everyone is so busy consuming their own content and building their own narratives. And what are you fighting for? The struggle now is about what to listen to. Rather than what we are becoming.
Attention truly has become a scarcity.
Okay. So we started with mindset formation and we went to the classroom. We went to what intervention in the classroom, what to measure, and then parenting, and now society and how technology is changing all of that. Okay. So let me move to the next segment of questions. I do want to talk about a lot of things, but recognize an opportunity. Students in the classroom, when we tell them, do some activity, start something, or in general, you've seen several entrepreneurs. How do they recognize opportunity? And where do they find it? What does literature say about it? What is your idea of a student saying, sir, I want to become an entrepreneur, but where do I start?
So the way I look at this is ideas and opportunities are two generally seen starting points for entrepreneurship. So what I mean by this is idea is something that it comes out of imagination, right? So I just sit and I say, hey, why not create a new type of clothing, or whatever. So I just sit and imagine what is not there, and then I try to bring it to life. That is one approach that I can take, which is completely different from going out and sensing what is going on and finding a gap, or more like the opportunity identification process. So I segregate ideas and opportunities slightly differently. I say ideas is something that's completely from a person's head. It's just an imagination. Then the person struggles to bring it to life. Whereas opportunity is something that comes out of either a problem that I saw, a change that I noticed, and so on. So if I look at it through this lens, what I tell students do is it's in the combination of the idea and opportunity that good ventures are created. So go searching for opportunities, no doubt. Keep your imagination alive. What happens is suddenly these combinations starts happening, and this combination is a practice. So as they say in psychology, associative thinking. Associative thinking is not a trait; it's a behavior. So if associative thinking is a behavior, then just like any other behavior, the only way to develop it is to practice it. So then I go back to Peter Drucker and say, yeah, entrepreneurship is a practice. There's the doubt about it, or a set of practices. Then let me now read widely, let me listen widely, let me experience widely. So then these combinations, I try to force combinations. Many combinations will be poor combinations. Then you drop them, and then you find something that, hey, this is great, let me work on it. Then you experiment. So I think the first step is to keep getting experiences as we discussed earlier, but keep making note of it, sensing changes. Second, keep ideating, keep coming up with new ideas, and that comes usually from past input. So keep reading a lot, get a lot of information on a variety of topics. Be generalist, don't be a specialist at all, because I think in general reading you get a lot of varied ideas. Combination happens when you have two disconnected ideas coming together, then you get a more novel innovation. So you're able to connect ideas, opportunities, and come up with new venture creation possibilities. With regard to opportunity, I think that's the first thing I would say. Second is, there is this huge debate, and it's been going on for a long time, at least in literature, is that are opportunities discovered or are they created? I think that discussion is forever, it's been going on. And there's a huge debate about it. So I think more than a debate, I think it's like I think both exist. There are opportunities to be discovered. And one of the interesting tools for this, a very old tool, is Drucker's own 7 sources of change or innovation, as he calls it. And there he talks about, for example, when you notice an incongruity, when you notice, an unexpected occurrence. So all things, he suggests 7 different sources from where change happens, and change gives rise to opportunity. So he says, if you're watchful, you can actually come up with a lot of opportunities. So it's a simple framework which people can apply in classrooms and so on. So that's one way of sensing change and coming up with it. So this is the discovery portion. The other is the creation portion. Creating opportunity is like more coming out of imagination, saying that you think of a desired state that doesn't exist today, and then you try to create that opportunity. So you put pieces together and make a new thing available. And then suddenly people start recognizing, oh my God, we really needed this, but we didn't know, that our life could be easier with this. So, and that comes by combination of several things. Like, for example, when Steve Jobs created the iPod or something like that, I don't think it was like a great, new to the world thing. I think it was more of a putting together of stuff in a certain way that made more sense for the people. When they started getting it, now from the iPod actually really inspired the iPhone, the iPad, and everything else, because the moment they saw the potential, I think it led to one after the other, because combination of newer technologies into one, then you create opportunity. A new market got created, new needs got created, and that led to a whole creation, cascading effect of new industries. So I think both sorts of entrepreneurship are required. So this is one way of looking at, clearly looking at opportunities. The other thing that I personally like from literature is this whole Macmillan and Shepard, classic now paper in AMR, actually a theoretical paper, which actually talks about third person opportunity and first person opportunity.
Okay.
So what they say is, hey, sensing opportunities is one thing. So you look at opportunities are interesting, but just because you notice opportunity, should you do something about it, right? Should I actually deal with that opportunity? And I think it's a very, very important question for an entrepreneur to ask, because see, once you develop the habit of sensing opportunities, you will see opportunity everywhere. And then people get excited. I can do everything.
Correct.
And then you realize, no, wait a second. Are you the best person to build a juice shop? Or are you the best person to build a rocket? Now, because there is a match between you and the opportunity also. So I think it's very important to establish that. And that's why I like that idea of third person and first person. They say third person is something that most people notice. That is, more than one person sees the same opportunity.
Meaning somebody can do this.
Correct.
That is third person opportunity.
Correct.
Okay.
So I can also do it, and anyone else can also do it, or you and me see the same opportunity. But then you have to spend a little while deciding, is this opportunity for me? And I think that's very, very critical.
Yeah.
Because if you don't make that choice, you can become a successful entrepreneur, but a disgruntled one, because you're just simply making money.
Yeah.
You know, I found something, I capitalized on it, I made a venture.
Yeah.
Now what? And then you're in a muddle. Whereas you don't enjoy the process, you know, it becomes too much stress.
And you're not authentic then. If
Correct,
you're doing
correct,
something only
correct,
for money, you're
correct,
not
correct,
authentic, you're
correct,
not happy,
correct.
and it shows.
And it shows, yeah, it shows in different ways. So
Yeah.
I think it's good that they figure out whether it's a real first person opportunity
Yeah.
before they latch onto it. So I think those are the big ideas that really. So I would say 3 big ideas for me personally. One is something that I've been trying to write a little bit about, is this whole thing of connecting ideas and opportunities. So idea to opportunity maps should be the starting point, not just ideas or opportunities. That's one thing. Second is, are ideas, opportunities discovered or created? I think they are both in their own ways. And the third is, of course, how does this third person opportunity, how do I choose what is ideal or relevant?
Choosing an opportunity.
Choosing the opportunity.
Yeah,
I think,
selecting the one.
yeah, I think that's really, really important. Not just as whether the opportunity is attractive, like a Mullen's framework predominantly checks whether the opportunity is attractive or not. Of course, he also has a factor in the middle that talks about your networks and all that, but again, from a very economic sense. So you don't really ask whether, you know, it fits my interests, my largely. So I think that element is very, very important too.
I'm reminded of an incident where an entrepreneur came to the incubation center when I was heading Catalyst. He said, "Hey, I have an idea, which is that I'm standing there waiting for the bus. I don't know where it is. Few years back, right? So how about having a GPS system where on my phone I can track the roadways, buses? You know, I'm standing here waiting. It's been 1 hour. Is it coming? Is it broken down where it is? Right? Great idea, right?
Correct.
Public convenience or whatever, right? Okay, great. So how do you want to build it? I'm a dentist. You are IIT.
Yeah.
So you build it.
Oh.
Okay, so this is a third person.
Yeah, this is a good example of a third person.
Third person opportunity. And we get that a lot. Several people saying, you know, this is the idea, but I don't really have the skill to build it. So, but also, you know, earlier you said complementary skills. You have to work with the team.
With others.
And this person can find someone.
Exactly.
Right? But you also have to bring some value to the table.
Absolutely.
Only then it will be a good fit. Not only because you came up with the idea. Ideas are many. So, okay, opportunity discovery and how it happens. And there are two types of entrepreneurs or student entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs that I see. One is who comes to me and says, "Sir, I want to become an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I have to do it, right? Where do I begin?"
Yeah.
Okay. And second is, "Sir, I am working on this idea and I need this help."
Yeah.
And time and again, I've noticed that people who are intrinsically driven, they're already on that journey, right? Mentors, incubators, faculty, all of us are only enablers. And our push to these people works more on the category which says that I'm building this, right? You just give them a slight nudge and they're off, right? And the other people are, I want to do something high on passion, high on will, but low on skill. They don't have the idea. You know, is there something in literature about this? Dealing with both of these, who is more successful or are both valid?
No, if you look at creativity literature, so a lot of creativity people think is coming up with ideas. It is. At the end of the day, creativity is just coming up with as many ideas as you can. But what actually matters there is depth. So one of the things that they say is, do you have deep technical knowledge about something? So the most creative ideas come from people who have deep technical expertise about something. That combined with intrinsic motivation and methods of coming up with ideas, which is like, you know, like lateral thinking and, you know, brainstorming and all those tools, which is more like how to come up with idea tools. But it has to be combined with something that is your domain, that domain knowledge, plus intrinsic motivation. So we see 3 factors actually influence high quality creativity. But most of the time it gets mistaken for just the idea creation tools. So if you can come up with 100 ideas, so you must have noticed there are a lot of these sessions where they say, let's do ideation to decide what business shuru karna hai. Let's take a white paper and start. Whatever comes to your mind, you write. So they come up with some random ideas, and most of the time you'll notice it's extremely shallow, except for the ones where they have had either past experience or they have been deeply troubled by something or deeply experienced with something, or they have toyed with something. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult to come up with a real idea. So many times these are very shallow thoughts, I can say, you know, and they think like just because I can fill a sheet of paper, I've actually done ideation. So then you have to stop the student and say, hey, wait a second, you can't ideate kuch bhi karo. That's not ideation. You pick a domain first. Disciplined ideation is necessary. You know, you can't imagine in an indisciplined way. That is of no use. So it's not like I just sit and say, whatever idea comes to you, write it on your brain, then we'll see what to do. No. You must dissuade that. You must say, hey, let us fix something. Now practice ideation within that box. Don't come up with ideas other than this for the next half an hour. That really pushes the person to say, oh my God, I'm not able to come up with ideas because I don't have the questions to ask. So then I tell them, okay, what you do, you go talk to somebody in that space, find out from them what are the major challenges they are facing. That is where a process like design thinking helps. So what you could do is you could say that, okay, I'm very passionate about this space, but I'm not very sure. So what I do, I just simply go to the people who are experiencing it, either the experts or the consumers or whoever I can get access to, ask them questions as an innocent beginner, you know, and write down. And then you start understanding what real ideas come out, and then you do the ideation on that. So I think disciplined ideation is really, really necessary. Otherwise, ideation becomes a joke because it's like a, you know, a fun activity. Everyone has fun, and then it doesn't serve any purpose.
So I'm wondering, how do I separate these two, entrepreneurs? And also I'm thinking about feedback versus encouragement. I have to ensure I give them feedback where they're wrong. At the same time, I don't want to shut them down saying, you know, are you stupid?
Correct.
What is this idea?
Correct.
Right? How do I balance the two? A team very high on enthusiasm, sir. Yes, entrepreneurship and startup, and I have this idea. And idea is crazy. I mean, there's no, you know, head or foot to it. Now, how do I tell them? And my philosophy has been, let them fail on their own. And I will tell them what can work, what cannot work. But I'm not going to kill an idea. I will not tell them this is not working.
Absolutely.
They have to figure it out on their own.
Yes.
But then they're spending a month, then 2 months, and 3 months. You know, there has to be a cutoff, right?
Yeah.
So I struggle to give them feedback and encouragement, right?
Yeah. No, I think what we are trying to tell them here is to build discipline to innovation, not judging. So we are not telling them whether the idea is good or bad. We are only saying come up with ideas which are deeper than the normal. So I always challenge my students saying, could this idea have been brought up by somebody, any bunch of 10, 30 people? If they can sit together and come up with the same set of ideas, that means your effort is not enough. Because that means in one session, if somebody can come up with the same idea, that means you have not spent enough depth on that idea. So I tell them, okay, do round 2 of the same ideas then. Can you step up the idea to make it difficult for another person to come up with it?
Okay.
So when you push them on that line, you do both of what you wanted. One is you are encouraging them to stay the course, and second is you're not deciding anything upfront. You're only saying that, you know, if you yourself believe that another person can do this in 30 minutes, then what are you expecting? A VC to give you $1 million for it? Something is wrong. You know? So why don't you only figure it out? What is wrong? Right? So then they come up with the next level. And then you say, okay, now let's think and see. And then at some point they say, no, sir, it's not possible. Others will not be able to do it. Then I say, okay, let's do a quick check. I'll invite a VC or an angel just generally. You pitch, all of you make pitch deck. And then they pitch. The guy immediately asks, I've seen 10 of them already. Then he said, then these guys get, oh, okay. Then I say, okay, no problem. He's only seen 10 of them. Now go and ask him only. What in the 10 didn't make some of them work or are not working? Can you give me some feedback? Because then you can, one more round, work on the same set of ideas. Because it's a space you seem to have interest, which is why you're staying it. So this also helps them pivot to areas of interest. Some people initially say, I want to do something in, you know, EV because it's very hot. And then slowly they realize EV karna hai, so you need to know and build a thing. And then they realize, no, so this I don't want to do. Actually, then I push them to say, hey, let's not do what is hot. Let's do what is interesting to you. You know, so that you can remain interested for a longer time. So then we find out what I always let them go back. So somebody comes and tells me, Sir, I'm very passionate about photography.
Hmm.
Okay. So I asked them, how can I find out whether you're really passionate about photography? So then the guy will say, sir, photos I can show you. I said, show me. Show me your album. Then I see that the last photo taken 6 months ago. I said, kaisa passion hai yaar? 6 months you didn't see anything in the world that was worth capturing in a photo? Then the guy says, no sir, I didn't have time. I said, do you think a person who's passionate will not have time? Then I said, no. See, go back and ask, what is it that you're doing despite not having time?
Yeah.
All pressures are there on you. You still find the time to do something. That's a passion. Right? So if you're telling yourself that it's okay, I don't have time, I'll push it by 6 months. Can it really be passion? Because passion is self-destructive. It will kill you if you don't do it. So something is wrong, no? Then yeah, correct. But I didn't think of it like that. I said, correct. So our job is to enable you to think and then you decide for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think encouragement is to be sustained by what you just said, nudging them to keep in the process. For that, encouragement is required. But at the same time, on the quality of the idea stuff, I think they need to be pushed. Absolutely. And first set, I think you can do it yourself, and then sometimes you might need other ecosystem players to come in to, kind of push the seriousness of it, to say that this is not good enough. I mean, if you want serious about it. And in the process, hopefully find out what is their passion.
Right.
Many times what they say they are passionate about is not really what they are passionate about at all. So I sometimes give them this thought experiment. Just imagine for the next 90 days, if I tell you I won't give you anything else except a camera.
Right.
And you have to keep on clicking pictures. How long will you go? And you say, then he says, after a while, I'll get bored. Then I say, you have to really reassess. Is that really your passion? Or is it like a good excuse to avoid what difficulty you're going through now?
Right.
So we have to be careful. So I think helping them discover passion, for that, I think what you suggested is good. Make them do a lot of things, because by doing, you can discover passion.
Yeah.
Most of them, they figure it out by thought. And I always tell them, thinking cannot discover your passion.
And also at many times the social context influences it.
Yes.
Right? Desirability, need for attention. What would make them look at me? That is what I should. And it's my passion. Okay, so interesting. So opportunity recognition. I've also spoken to entrepreneurs where they said, because they said it can't be done, I will do it. Okay. For example, we had Inshada from Kashmir. Crafts, although brings a lot of livelihood to people in Kashmir, but also the parents do not want their children to, work in crafts. They want them to get government jobs, right? Do something else, because this doesn't bring a lot of money. So it is downplayed by the parents. And she was like, I will do it. This is why I am doing it, because they say you can't do it or you don't do it. So a lot of time this zid drives the entrepreneurs. You think that is sustainable? They can go on long enough?
So confidence is self-esteem, self-confidence, self-efficacy. These are all very strong variables that indicate entrepreneurship in a person. That said, overconfidence has been found to be a huge dampener of entrepreneurship. Mistakes, failure, sometimes people becoming extremely overconfident, stubbornness. All this is also the other side. So it's funny because a little bit of it is actually very helpful. The moment you cross a threshold, the same thing becomes a problem. So I think that's where a good mentor's role comes in, to help them stay within the realm of confidence and not border on overconfidence. Because overconfidence comes with its own costs, psychologically as well as for the venture. Because then you stop responding to feedback, you stop noticing changes, because you think you will somehow make it work. So that, I think, as good mentors, we become more objective. We tell them, hey, why don't you see reality as it is, and help them to see it.
So I think we're starting to talk about personality of entrepreneur a little bit here. So some research says that narcissism is positively connected with success of an entrepreneur. Personality traits. Thinking grand. Imagining yourself to be at the top of the world, right? And that too, it can border. It's assessed as a negative trait, although narcissism, but it predicts entrepreneurial success.
So entrepreneurship by its very nature, I've often thought of this as well. When you say entrepreneurship, what do you study? You study outliers, basically. You don't study the average, correct? So you're always studying people who are standing out of the pack. Now, when you study people out of the pack, every one of them is so unique in their own way.
Yeah, how do you generalize it?
Yeah, it's very
Amazing,
difficult to
yeah.
generalize things in entrepreneurship. So I wouldn't want to jump to too much. So I've also begun to feel that there is not going to be a theory of entrepreneurship. I think there's going to be theories of entrepreneurship, because it's very difficult to come up with a single theory of entrepreneurship, because we are not talking of a single phenomenon.
Okay, this is very interesting idea. Entrepreneurship is a study of outliers. How can there be one theory?
Exactly. Because, I mean, I think most people will agree with you that entrepreneurship is a study of outliers. That's what makes them interesting. The more they are away from the pack, the more interesting they become. That's why Steve Jobs is so interesting, because there's only one Steve Jobs. There's only one Elon Musk. Very interesting. The moment you say everybody looks the same, nobody wants to study them anymore.
No, I'm reminded of pilot in the plane principle of effectuation. Stop listening to the news and experts' opinion. Don't go out chasing best people's opinion on it.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what you are imagining.
Yeah.
The grand vision that you have.
Yeah.
And which is, of course, impossible.
Yeah.
Others won't see it, and you
Yeah.
possibly can't explain it in words
Correct.
or through presentations, right? So it's outlying.
Correct. So I think I'm also reminded of this old. I'm going back to Schumpeter. I think that's really 100 years ago now. So when I was early stages of studying my doctoral education, and I was reading, and I love to read, so I was reading about all these classics. What I understood and made sense for myself is there are entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial action is a spectrum. Okay, think of it as a spectrum. When you think of it as a spectrum, you have people who do low risk, low reward activity, and they do high risk, high reward activity. And you have people all along the way.
Yeah.
So then you connect this back to basic economic theory. What happens is, any economy tries to be in equilibrium. Now, there are people who come in and disturb the equilibrium, right? Like somebody like a Steve Jobs will come and disturb the whole industry. He come and say, you know what, I'm going to give you 1,000 songs in a box. You download and listen to it. Now, what happens? It just disturbs the whole music industry, which was running on a dominant business model. They don't know what to do, honestly. Everyone is confused. So there are people like this. These guys send an economy which is stable, which is in equilibrium. You just completely disequilibrate it.
Yeah.
There will be people like that all the time. And then, interestingly, a whole bunch of entrepreneurs come into the picture to send the economy back from disequilibrium to the next equilibrium. That's why you find so many new startups coming in to fill gaps that got created. You have streaming services, you have different sorts of content production services. You suddenly see a whole range of people coming in. Now, what are they trying to do? They're not trying to disturb the equilibrium, because there's no equilibrium now. They're trying to get it back to a new equilibrium. And then you will find somebody else coming and again disequilibrating it. So this keeps going. You don't have stable equilibria all the time, which is understandable. So we need entrepreneurs of both sides, in my opinion.
Okay.
People who, and so very far out, you will find one or two people like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and people like that. They are there all over the world. And then there are lots and lots of other people who actually bring back equilibrium.
So 0 to 1 is where you disturb everything. Correct. And then 1 to many. So high risk and high reward entrepreneurs, they create this equilibrium by going from 0 to 1. And then low risk, low reward entrepreneurs come in, capitalize, consolidate, and new equilibrium is achieved, and they are taking from 1 to many.
So I think we need both. And so only thing I think we would be wary, and again, this is something I think educators should be more aware about, is when we study stories of real people who send equilibrium to disequilibrium, we should be very careful telling our students not to emulate too much of that. I think they should serve as inspiration and less emulation, because the risk is, if you take 4 things out of the 30 things that a Steve Jobs did and actually copy it, you're asking for trouble. Seriously. So it's better that you seek inspiration from these people and then figure out your own method to this madness, rather than emulation. Whereas the people who send disequilibrium to equilibrium, they can be emulated because they create systems, they create processes. So I think we need research of all kinds. And there is also, in the middle of all this, outcomes also can vary. So, um, this old famous classic paper, again, I'm reminded, there's productive entrepreneurship, there's unproductive entrepreneurship, there's also destructive entrepreneurship. So all sorts of actions happen in this midst of all this. So very entrepreneurial thought is needed to destroy also. It's not easy. So you sit and really come up with very innovative ideas to create trouble, which is also very, very, in a way, use of the same cognitive, affective, and behavioral actions.
Yeah, I mean, this idea is revealing for me. Interesting. Outlier. So what are we researching then? What are we? So entrepreneurship is best expressed in cases than empirical
Absolutely.
papers.
I think so. So why am I a huge convert from very positivistic approach to extremely social constructivist? I'm a big fan now of social constructivist approaches. I do grounded theory, I do case studies, multiple case. Um, I do, naturalistic inquiries. I do interviews. I do cases. I just love this ethnography. And why? Because I'm beginning to feel that the how and the why is so important in every case. Now, over a period of numerous cases, you will be able to start generalizing. But very important to put the boundary conditions, because without the boundary conditions, it's very difficult to do it. So I think we will end up with some good theories of entrepreneurship, middle range theories of entrepreneurship, but by studying numerous outliers over time, and in the process through social construction. Because I'm beginning to feel that just taking secondary data and crunching numbers. Now today, if you notice in entrepreneurship literature, like a very famous data set in the US, the PSED data set. It's a large panel data set of new ventures on which most of the entrepreneurship theory was developed. And today, the same set of people are actually challenging that, saying that, what, maybe we're missing a lot of things, because the first point of question came up is, when does somebody get into the PSED? Only when you venture.
Yeah.
Correct? But you think how much happens before a person decide to venture? You know that.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing all this, huge experimentation pre-start. Isn't that entrepreneurship? Because a lot of entrepreneurship happens before you start, and we're missing all the stuff. So I had a PhD student who actually tracked student entrepreneurs in Norway for almost 18 months.
Yeah.
They were a part of a program that was outcome is venture creation. It's called a venture creation program. Through the 2 years, they only do that. So she studies them through the 2 years to see how many groups actually became ventures. All of them have to become ventures. What sort of ventures? And then we find out the data, whether they registered, what's the capital, how far they've come, how many jobs they have generated, and so on and so forth. It's very interesting. Some of the teams split. They said we can't work together.
Right.
They became two. One entrepreneur eventually became a solo entrepreneur. He said, boss, I can't do this with any of these guys, but my idea is just too good.
Yeah.
They all say it's bad, but I believe it's too good, so I'm going on my own. And then there's another group which decided that we just become such thick friends, we will do something together. It doesn't matter what, this idea is not working. So we had all sorts of combinations, and all of these became ventures of significance. So that means they created real jobs. Some of them raised money after, finishing the program. So what happened in that first 18 months, really, they create a venture at some point in time, but a lot happens before they create venture. So if we don't study these things, then the data set inherently is biased, because we are already, we are success biased. No, we said
Absolutely.
only people who set up ventures are entrepreneurs. I mean, then
Yeah.
what are we saying here? So a lot of questions can be asked about. I'm not saying that quantitative data sets, panel data are not useful. I'm saying they're very helpful to study other aspects of entrepreneurship. But if you look at it, there's a lot of other things that can be studied by going into pre-venture situations where getting access is difficult.
Yeah.
But student entrepreneurship is a great place to get access to that.
Thanks for that validation. I mean, so we did the survey, Guess India survey
Yeah.
2023, right? We had the data, we wrote the report, and it is so mechanical when I read it, right? X% of students say this, Y% say this. Why, that data I didn't have. And before that, I had only worked with, entrepreneurs, out of which only 10% were students.
Yeah.
So I didn't know a lot about students, and then they would not enter the incubation boundary because the quality of the idea or their commitment will not be at that level, right? So before coming out of the incubation center, I hadn't worked a lot with the students. Towards the last 6-8 months of my incubation tenure, we started a program with students where we actually focused on creating more student entrepreneurs. Credit-based program with funding, practice-based, 14-hour teaching studio model, and then only about building the venture, real mentoring, industry mentors, building the product, right? And that is where we realize, students need a lot of pre-incubation help. And who are we to decide that people who are in the incubator are really the entrepreneurs, right? Outside of that, many people are struggling to get in. So I was saying, with the survey data, we did not know what to conclude, and that is why we are having these conversations this year.
No, I think qualitative data is absolutely essential, especially in entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is a lot about how and why somebody did something. It's less about what they did, because that's more easy to see with secondary information.
Right.
But why did one person do it, not another person not do it, both in the same situation? Like two students in the same class, one sees it, the other doesn't see it. I think it's really important to understand why and how one saw. That will help us build future theory, and so I think there's something there.
Okay, great. So that is the second sort of broad section where we had a discussion on opportunity recognition. Let us jump into the ecosystem. We've broadly spoken about society, parents. That is where that is the original ecosystem where you are breeded, right? But then you come to university, you have peers, you have faculty. Now government is doing their bit. There are institute innovation councils, there are entrepreneurship cells, incubation. This is entire ecosystem. What are the ingredients of ecosystems? What does research say about what kind of ecosystems do students need? First of all, entrepreneurs need, and then the students.
No, I think ecosystem literature has really grown. If at all, one aspect in entrepreneurship that's really ballooned in the last 10, 15 years is the ecosystem literature. Um, uh, so I think without particularly naming different stakeholders, I think you have named several of them and there are more. I think everyone has a role to play. But I think what we are beginning to see is that a lot of orchestration in the way ecosystems are being formed. So, for example, different pieces of the puzzle are being individually focused. But an ecosystem doesn't work like that. It's like, just think of this this way. I've decided I want to create a forest, right? I first grow all the coconut trees, right, for the first 5 years. And then the next 5 years, I say, no, let me not do coconut trees, let me do mango trees. And then after another 5 years, I say, let's do a banyan tree. And then we'll do an oak tree. And then, after 100 years, suddenly, I go back and say, no, but the coconut tree didn't survive for some reason. Let me go back and put the coconut tree again. So what is happening is, instead of allowing the base inputs and then allowing the cross-fertilization to happen, I am forcing cross-fertilization. So I'm thinking very instrumentally. So instead of getting inspiration for creating ecosystem from the natural world, we are getting a lot of inspiration from the industrial world. So for example, I look at value chain. So pre-incubation leads to incubation. Incubation leads to post-incubation funding. And then scale up and so on. This is typically like an industrial product, right? So I first look at, sourcing of raw material, I do value add processing, then I do distribution, then I do this. So these are two different ways in which you can look at ecosystem creation. My qualm with this second approach is that it's too mechanistic, and ecosystems are not mechanistic by nature. They are more natural by nature. So now you see a growing voice in the ecosystem literature saying that we need to look at alternate ecosystems.
Okay.
Right. And so I think that's a great source of research for us to say, how do we go back and see what are the key pieces required for an ecosystem to thrive. Now, we shouldn't see the incubator, the funder, and so on. These are artifacts, these are players in the ecosystem. They can be of any form, right? The funding can come in any form. It need not come only through an angel or through policy funding. So what is required to understand is funding required and for what? So in student entrepreneurship, if you realize, once you decide that you want to have a venture, then you get a lot of funding. But if you still see the amount of, experiment capital available to students, it's still fairly limited, and it's not seen like, purely experimental many times. So I think we need to spend a little bit more time there. That is something that I think needs attention. Second, I think spaces, we have created infrastructure. So we have incubators, we have accelerators, we have all that. But it's only the hardware. Where's the software? So for example, I go with an idea, but the person sitting there judges. Now he says, hey, this is not a good idea. This is a good idea. So a person who should not judge makes a judgment. So the software inside all the ecosystem pieces needs attention.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're focusing too much on the hardware. So creating infrastructures where focus has gone, rightly so, because we didn't even have it. But now that we have it, I think it's time we shift from the hardware to the software of the ecosystem.
So, I refer to that as the philosophy, incubation philosophy, or mentoring philosophy, the ecosystem philosophy. How do you want to see entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs? How would you support them? Do you want to create hurdles for them, and those who cross the hurdles are successful? Or do you want to create enabling environment and train them and coach them and help them get through the hurdles, right? Are you in for selecting the, identifying the 5 people who should fail?
Exactly.
Or how do we help everyone sort of cross these hurdles and complete the race, right? So, I think the software, the soft component of the ecosystems is what matters. And also, if you look at thriving ecosystems, starting right from Silicon Valley to other developing economies where entrepreneurship has thrived, and in Nordic countries especially, there are events like Slush from Finland and so on, which have really brought the global community together, and for right reasons as well. What are the key features there in the soft infrastructure? Have you experienced any of those? I think you were consulting, hand-holding entrepreneurs in that region earlier, right? So what is that difference in the mindset, the soft component of the network?
So I think a few pieces that are lacking is there is a lot more reception for academics in industry. So for example, industry is more used to doing things with academia in entrepreneurship. So for example, the Innovation Norway, which is a big body, is able to bring together, um, you know, the industry partner, the academic, the students, to actually jointly do a project. So what happens, there is commitment right from the beginning. And this is real problems they bring to the table. Academics help in bringing the technical aspects, they do it in the labs, and then the students actually build solutions and so on. This ability to bring together these people starts from mutual respect for each other.
Okay.
So for example, industry is able to acknowledge the contribution of academia in their development. Similarly, academia is able to become flexible to incorporate industry into their systems. Now, this takes time to develop, and this requires somebody to orchestrate it. Right? So, for example, you can't bid for projects without industry partners in any big project that you ask funding for from the government. It's just impossible for an academic to be doing anything on their own. Everything needs an industry partner. You create places within universities where industry are invited to work along. So today we are seeing instances of that, small instances of that in IITs. The research parks are a good example. So we were trying to, but I think the softer aspect is that, see, I can come and sit there, but if I don't believe that what you're doing is worthwhile, if I start having assumptions and doubts about it, then I won't be more open to it. So we need more champions in the industry who believe that academic work is valuable and we need academics who truly believe that industry can work with academia. So I think that bridge is something they do very well. The second thing, sorry,
before you go to second point, I've spoken to Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala,
yeah,
and that's the best case
yeah,
of how industry academia interface.
yeah,
He championed it, he
yeah,
initiated
yeah,
it, and a lot of industry interfaces happening
absolutely,
there.
yeah,
But replicating that, he said,
yeah,
across the country has not been possible. Only a handful people have been able to do that.
yeah,
So I don't know whether there is a madman theory. I don't know whether there is theory, but I picked up this word from some conversation that there is this one person conduit who gets it done,
yeah.
right? And that is why, it is a study of outliers.
I think any entrepreneurial action, be it at the university, at the national level, it needs that champion. And whatever we say about it, it's either one person or a small group of people who have to make it happen, because some of these are not traditional pathways. So there's no process to make it happen.
Right.
So therefore, it requires somebody who's extremely unreasonable with himself and the world to say, no, I'm just going to see this through. And I think a good sponsor backing them makes magic happen. So no doubt about it.
So you go to the second point.
Yeah. The second thing is, I think, bringing pieces together. So for example, you will see rarely that a technical institute, a design institute, a management school jointly doing things together. Whereas when you go down to some of these hotspots, you will notice that a lot more times they are at each other's institutes.
Yeah.
They're talking a lot more to each other. They're sharing a lot more with each other. They value a lot more each other because they think that jointly we can do things. So a good example of this, like we talk of Silicon Valley. If you look at Silicon Valley, you have a design school, you have an engineering school, you have all sorts of schools. You have all the top open-minded organizations have their offices few kilometers. They're all walking back to schools to discuss ideas with their professors.
Yeah.
Very rare to see all that happen too often. So, and they create situations like if you see a Google, you can think of it as an outlier, right?
Yeah.
Because, like for example, they always invited, people to come and talk to them about ideas. Now, they didn't ask, hey, I'm going to bring this guy who's going to talk about a philosophy book he's written for 1 hour. Whoever wants to come and listen. They never asked, like, if I do this, what will I get? Will Google's revenue go up? No, they just allowed, the germination. So, what I'm trying to say is that this is an organic process. So, if we start saying, I want to get this efficiency mindset, please tell me which are the 5 ingredients to put so that I can quickly get the ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's a poor way of designing an ecosystem. If I suddenly become liberal in my thinking and say, let me get as many pieces and just simply dump it, let the ecosystem form how it wants, then you become a Silicon Valley. Otherwise, what happens is we are trying to now find out, can I find out, do I need an engineering school? Okay, I'll set up one. Do I need so you're splitting it up again. So you see the efficiency mindset comes in. We need to stop our policymakers, our educators, our champions of ecosystem development to stop thinking the efficiency way when it comes to ecosystem development. Because efficiency mindset will make you optimize, and optimization cannot result in entrepreneurship. It is just impossible. We are trying to do something. I mean, it is like, in corporate entrepreneurship, when I teach, I always tell them, what is the source for good innovation to happen? Slack. Okay. Can you practice Slack in your organization? No. What do you want? Innovation. I said, boss, what are we talking? You want innovation? For that, you need Slack. Not allowed. You have to optimize. So you are in an inherently, stuck situation. So so we do innovation theater because I cannot do real innovation because I can't waste resources. So this should not be replicated or happen in ecosystem. We should not allow. So there are portions of the ecosystem where we need to be efficient, but that should be just for the redundant, just the support processes. The core of the ecosystem should be organic. There has to be a little bit of things going unplanned, unorchestrated, and we should have the patience to allow it, see it, and still not stop it.
That is so counterintuitive, right? Slack is required for innovation, and to build an ecosystem, you know, and I'm maybe not clear on some of the things that you said. Orchestrate it, dump resources and people together, and let it happen organically, as opposed to I need a design school, I need a management school, I need a
Correct.
this, and then you started. I feel like both are similar.
So where it is different is, I first try to identify what all ingredients are required to make the potion. In an ecosystem, it's very difficult upfront to decide how much of what portion is required. So what I'm saying is, let us just put the things into it and let's see what comes out. It's like your effectuation, no?
Yeah.
It's like, I have these things in the fridge, let's see what I can do with it.
Yeah.
See, it's easy to teach, very difficult to practice when it comes to ecosystem. Okay, I have all these ingredients, let me just put literature, let me put design, let me put all this and see what comes out of it. Then you practice effectuation. But the trouble is, nobody has the patience to, if I put, what will I get? Array, basic effectuation says first put, then we'll see what
Then we'll
comes.
see, yeah.
So we put the cart before the horse.
Okay.
So where the trouble comes is, again, I'm going back to mindset. See, we are all trained so much in an efficiency mindset that we are clear about outcomes upfront. We want to know outcomes first.
Right.
Tell me the outcome and tell me what you need for that, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
If you tell me, no, just give this to me and let's see what outcomes come, which is true effectual thinking, very entrepreneurship. Very, very difficult. Only an entrepreneur can do it.
See, I'm just building more and more faith into effectuation process. Okay. And that is how we've been, building this initiative Guess as well. We started as just a survey into an interview series, into a podcast now. And now students are asking for more and more. And let's see where we go from here. We don't know, what are the outcomes going to
That's
be.
wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah. To see this in practice. Okay, great. That is ecosystems.
Yeah.
That is, bringing actors together, putting them in a place without expecting, without predicting what would happen, and let it ferment on its own, and then something will come out. The actors will interact and then create an ecosystem.
But I think we should focus a lot on creating the interactions. We should monitor interactions, ensure that a lot of interactions happen, cross-fertilization of areas. I think we should have more process metrics there, saying that have meetings happened, have people met each other, have people shared each other, not focused on what comes out of it. We just measure it for measurement's sake, but we don't track it. So that's not going to be the measure.
Are we doing what we are supposed to
Correct.
do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, whatever we measure gets managed as well. Okay. Couple of other, broad sections that I want to touch. Let's go to our favorite, which is the education. We have touched upon education, so we will focus more on developing the capacity.
Yeah.
Right? Pedagogy we have touched before,
Yeah.
but let's talk about, how do we teach entrepreneurship? How do we train ourselves to become better teachers of entrepreneurship? Should we be teaching or should we just be facilitating the learning process? What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I think you already answered, but I think we have to move away from teaching.
Okay.
I think that's something that we have to clearly do. We have to do less teaching and more facilitation. It makes classroom management difficult because a lot of things going on in the class. So when I run a class, if somebody walked into my class, they would think I have complete no control over my class. People are walking around, talking, chit-chatting. It looks like a marketplace. And so my dean once walked in, the earlier dean, and he said, "Raj, is it a break?" I said, no, class is going on. What do you mean break? I mean, they're very seriously doing something. So he was a little bit worried actually that, have I recruited the right guy?
Okay.
So the trouble is, I think when you do classes like that, then we need to develop, we need to change. It's not that I've perfected it instantly. It has taken a lot of time to develop patience because there are going to be people who will do other things, distract themselves, be distracted. But there are some people who are going to be super serious about what they're doing. And so me bringing them back into the, getting the attention back, I think is really what I'm trying to do. And on and off, I nudge things. So to push them forward. So I walk around, I question, I challenge, and then I move away. And then they're like, okay, I have to go back and think again. So they build prototypes in the class. They make models. They play around with clay and for some time. And then they say, oh, why should I do this? Then I bring the person who designs Royal Enfield bikes. And he says, my first prototype is actually modeling clay for you, kind of information. So I tell them, it's not a joke that I've given it to you. It's serious because prototypes are built with clay. So why don't you make something serious? Then they're like, oh, okay, it's actually serious business. So I think our job is more to bring life into them and allow them to go where they want to go.
Hmm.
So facilitation is key,
Hmm.
but to facilitate in the right way, so that we don't get too much into this whole I shouldn't use the word theoretical because that's a grossly misunderstood. So a lot of people think if you teach, you're doing theory, and if you make them do activities, you're doing practical. I tell them, no, that's not the way you divide theory and practice, isn't it? The, as Andrew Van Deven, I think, long wrote, there is nothing so practical as a good theory, he said. So
What?
a good theory helps make practice so simple that you don't try to even remember the theory. The theory is so, oh, how did I not remember this? Is how you should be, right? So that's a good example of a good theory. So what we need is action-based learning, where theory is the basis on which actions are designed. So when you say, for example, if I do identification or discovery of opportunities, I tell them here is for example, Peter Drucker's 7 sources of innovation. Let's look at changes across each of these. So I give it to groups. I tell them, you choose which changes you want to track, and track it for a sector, track it for a society, track it for a problem. I don't care. Choose that and discipline, track, and show me. What happens is something interesting, because suddenly they hit upon insights that they never thought about, because very surface. When they dig deeper and deeper, they realize that, oh my God, I never thought there's something bigger that I can actually build out of this. So that nudging is what I think. So theory backed or theory designed activities is something an educator should learn to do. Uh, the other thing that I have been personally working a lot on these days is educator development, because a lot of people are teaching entrepreneurship today, because some by choice and some by force, because everywhere we are shortage of people. So sometimes you're just told, hey, from next term, please teach, because you need somebody to teach. Right? So engineering schools, medical schools, law schools, undergrad schools, everybody's teaching entrepreneurship nowadays, and anybody and everybody is tasked with it. And poor things, they struggle with it. So they go and do a FDP. That's normal. So in an FDP, they are taught, okay, opportunity, you have to identify, then you have to evaluate, then do a business model canvas, then write a business plan, raise money, and you're on. So they go and do the same thing in the class. Then you realize that the student says, sir, it doesn't work like this. Even the student knows it doesn't work like this. And then the trouble is, how does the faculty gain credibility in the classroom? Correct. So after a lot of toying, after almost 10, I've been doing this entrepreneurship education since 2007-8, when NEN started for the first time. So having done this for like 15, 20 years now, what I've realized is faculty need practice. So now you can't ask a faculty to practice, because most places institutionally don't allow faculty to run enterprises and so on. So except a few places which are more liberal. So I've come up with this concept called quasi practice. This is a most recent paper that So quasi practice is the idea where a faculty works along with a student entrepreneur or a real entrepreneur, where the venture is for real. So that means, let's say there is an entrepreneurial action, let's say fundraising, right? He wants to raise his first round of money. So the faculty co-works with the entrepreneur, his team, to actually build the pitch deck, go for the pitch, see what the VC asks, the angel asks. They go through the experience. I'm not wedded in the venture because I don't have equity stake. I'm just doing this because I want to practice. And so once I do this, and then I get rejected, or there's a process where, for example, they get very excited, they come for due diligence, and then they say, sorry, we don't want to invest in you. And then the faculty is confused, the entrepreneur is confused. Hey, why did it happen? Then they do reflection. Hey, why did this happen? Then they redo the things, they go back again, and then they eventually fundraise. Now, when this faculty who has been through this process comes to the class and teaches fundraising or pitching, it's going to be qualitatively different than a person who's just sat through the FDP saying, pitch deck has to have 10 slides because Guy Kawasaki said 10 slides many, many years ago. So we do that. So I think similarly with business model, when the person goes and spends, say, 90 days refining, pivoting and changing the business model, that faculty teaching business model in class will be very different than just simply putting sticky notes on it. Because he suddenly says, hey, how does this connect to the unit economics? Can we go back and rework it? Then he goes back and says, hey, let's create an A/B experiment here. suddenly the classroom experience is very different. So
Yeah.
for me, it's very, very important that a faculty quasi practices alongside. Number one. Second, it is helpful in another way. For example, an engineering school faculty will work with an engineering entrepreneur. So he brings engineering entrepreneurship knowledge into the classroom. A medical faculty teaching entrepreneurship will not use a random case. He will have worked with a medical entrepreneur. So he knows how healthcare works, he knows all that. So he's able to bring in more contextual relevance to his classes. So I think quasi practice does 2-3 things. One is it brings the whole idea of this, the learning itself. What happens in the real world is brought to the class rather than just teaching a framework. Second is it brings very contextual learning opportunities to the classroom. So, and third is I think beyond just doing what do I say, this teaching entrepreneurship, I think it creates a great opportunity for the faculty to also research, because when he does this quasi practice several times, suddenly he identifies new questions that he says, I'm puzzled now. I saw once it happened like this, now I'm seeing it happen like this. I go to literature doesn't have an answer. So I'm saying, oh my God, I struck a great question now, which is worth doing a research on. So I think quasi practice bridges a lot of this, this relevance of entrepreneurship education problem straight away, without having to actually start and run a venture. Because I think every faculty expecting them to have entrepreneurship experience is unreasonable.
Right.
To do that at scale.
Great. I think that's very interesting idea. From FDPs to quasi practice, we know faculty student teams trying to do startup, and we've seen that in action at IIT Mandi as well. There have been, at least during my tenure with the incubator, about 4-5 faculty initiated with their research scholars, or students initiating and then onboarding a faculty as an advisor, technical mentor, and so on. That has happened. But taking it a notch further, although I feel like, in a quasi practice, if you are not invested, you are not accountable. But I think for faculty, it can also be that, students are looking up to you. And then if you say, I'm going to help you do the pitch deck and be with you, that creates some sort of accountability. So I'm not very clear on that, but creating a system of faculty engaging formally. But how do we create the right stakes is the question in my mind. But it can be an interesting idea.
I think I've just written the first paper on it, and I have so many questions myself in my head after this. And I think you raised some interesting questions. So I built it on theory. So I looked at practice theory literature and built it. So there we talk a little bit about proximal engagement as an important aspect. So learning can happen when there is proximal engagement. So for proximal engagement, I think if you're invested, you will suffer the same emotions as the entrepreneur. But if I'm not invested, at least technically, the chances of me stepping a little bit aside to look at this as just a situation of learning could be higher, is my hunch. But as you said, I think this raises a lot of questions about how we can make this, maybe there are multiple models of quasi practice which are required in ways in which different sorts of people can learn differently. So for example, one could be where a faculty is actually invested, which gives rise to one set of learning, where when a person is not invested, I think that itself is a great setting to do a research, because if you're invested and if you're not invested, who learns more and who gains more?
Yeah,
so it can be interesting to
and also, if you're invested, right, you will also make irrational choices.
Absolutely.
Or you will overinvest, right, in your ideas. And if your focus is on learning, then you will be able to, bring yourself out of that context and view it as an outsider and learn from it and reflect on it.
Chances are higher.
Interesting. That's an interesting research question. And having seen several entrepreneurs who've gone through our incubation programs, and many of them students, and I had some earlier on the podcast in the last few months, seeing their journey, very different. One student who was the very first, Siddharth Gangal, very first incubatee of the Catalyst Incubation Center at IIT Mandi, and also a student at that time, a very first entrepreneur. He exited his venture. And we spoke to him, and now the stories that he tells how he got an offer for his startup, stellar offer, but he had to decide in 3 days.
Oh.
I remember him calling saying, I have 3 days. What do we do? So we were, feeling like we are also in the same situation. And Saurabh, who was, a senior advisor in Catalyst, and both of us built the incubator together. He said that, this is our first love, the first startup, student startup, and reaching a stage where he has an offer, 3 days. And we are suffering the same emotion, right? And several other stories come to my mind where, we feel like that was our success, or oh, hey, we could not unfortunately help that entrepreneur. And now when I go to the classroom, I'm able to tell those stories.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it makes it much more alive.
I actually am now tempted to say that let me do some field work with all of these people and the faculty and the students, do a lot of interviews, and actually look at, some building some nice, more further models of quasi practice, because I think we need more practical ways of doing it. So if we gain some insights into this further, I mean, clearly cases.
And also the effect of having someone senior, for example, co-founder conflicts, or young founders not having enough leadership capabilities, right? Negotiating interpersonal communication, right? How do we split the equity and those hard conversations? And they don't know all of that at that time. Now, having someone who's a faculty figure, mentoring figure, that person could act as a, influencing or disciplining mechanism where you don't fight.
Very
amicably resolve it, or maybe it quietens you and you actually don't make the right decision. What is the effect
what is
of
actually happening? No, that's another interesting question actually.
Right.
Very, very useful question to build a paper on, because I think this is something that a lot of students face. So for example, when I go through these conflicts, and co-founder conflicts are very common, especially at that early stage. If you see success, it's even more common when they are young and all that. So does the presence of a faculty mentor make a difference, or does it make it worse? I mean, or does it make them quiet to the extent that they suffer quietly, and which is also not good, because then you're psychologically getting defeated or demotivated,
Right.
which is also not a great thing. So what I think is very, very interesting. I think that itself is a amazing topic to explore, especially in a student setting, because the students are much younger and
Much
less,
younger,
less
and you're influencing them by your actions, by your decisions, and they look up to you. And also the entrepreneurial inclination of the faculty itself. Right? We are in academic environment, more bureaucratic, process driven, takes time, slow. We are patient, right? For them, they have to be agile and quick. So how do we influence their organization culture? If they look up to us for decisions and for reviews, and we are like, okay, wait for a month, their whole organization culture could be set
No,
differently.
absolutely. I think these are very good questions, very pragmatic questions to ask and answer. And since you have examples, I think it's much easier.
Right.
Nice, yeah.
Okay. Let me go to the final segment, which is where are the blind spots? And let us look at the entrepreneur. And you, of course, work with several students who think about venture creation, how they ideate it, how they're trying to practice, how they're trying to negotiate amongst each other, role of faculty, the ecosystem, university, right? So what are the blind spots for an entrepreneur, first of all? And then we will go to, for the university, what are the blind spots? And we'll go to policymaker, government, what is it that we are completely missing? So let's start with the entrepreneur. The student entrepreneur. What is the student entrepreneur missing today?
Today's students, I think, really need time and space, I think, to think big. Who can help them do that? I think we need spaces on campus where where these entrepreneurial minds can, what do I call them? Psychologically safe spaces where they can explore their, their wildest ideas and thoughts and questions without being judged. Where they can experiment without being, marked on. So we need this entrepreneurship not just as a course, but as something that the entrepreneur, the individual student can try. Before even reaching the stage of incubation and all that, just as a student, I want to experiment, I want to try. Where's the time and space? Is there a mechanism to do this?
Yeah.
Most of the time, it has to be the individual student and the faculty. Sometimes you hit upon a good faculty, and the faculty is also equally an entrepreneurial.
And many times we are actually fighting against the system.
Yeah.
Working out of, the working hours to make that happen. It's a struggle, right?
Struggle. Yeah. So I think entrepreneurs need those. So students need that kind of space, I think, and access inside the environment. So can they have some time off? Let's say can they earn credits for spending time on this, for example, so that they don't have to worry that, I have to forego something or do this only when I don't have anything else to do. Can I actually formally take this up as an activity? So they need that space, number one. While we talk a lot about physical tinkering spaces, I think we need a lot more stakeholders to come and inspire our students.
Okay.
They shouldn't come only for, events and, I think people should just come and hang around. Because students, when they talk in informal settings, they gain a lot more from ecosystem partners. So I think students get a lot of inputs, but mostly in very organized settings, like, you guest lectures, case discussions, visits, events. Those are not the settings in which, you have time and space to discuss your idea.
They don't ask the genuine questions.
Yeah.
I told you in my last visit here, I happened to accidentally, a couple of people caught me around canteen area. I said, we've seen you somewhere. And then they figure out, it's on the podcast and you're here at Reva University. Started talking and eventually ended up in the hostel.
Okay.
And they really opened up.
Yeah.
The emotional spaces, they went to the question, the parenting and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then in psychological safe places to speak up, to experiment, and rather than formal setups where, they are concerned about their being observed.
Yeah. That's the biggest challenge I think entrepreneurs have today. They have ideas, they have things, but they don't open up because they always are worried that they will be judged. They're being seen all the time.
It's becoming a performing art.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Entrepreneurship is becoming performative. The Shark Tank, the shows, the fundraisers, the social media.
Yeah. Too much peer pressure to even before you start succeed.
Yeah.
Or at least show that you're successful. So you're not genuinely experimenting at all.
Right.
So I think they need really psychological space. So I like this idea of building psychological safe spaces, sandboxes where they can come, experiment, and just talk to people about their ideas, get something, go back. If we can create those environments for them without having any expectations out of it, I think then we are on to something. I think that's their biggest thing, because I think there's a lot of access to money, there's a lot of access to people, more people are willing to give time and things like that, but there is a market making that is not happening there.
Are students too much worried about fundraising?
I think that's also hyped so much that many times they don't need so much money, but they still feel they, raising money is the only solution. I tell them, like, say, I advised a woman entrepreneur some years back, and she was building a science-based startup. So she was always saying that if I don't raise X dollars, $1 million or whatever, I won't be able to build the kind of labs I need to do the, the testing and things like building and testing of this. So first 2-3 times we raised, people are saying, hey, before you start, how do we, while the idea is very good, how do we give you like $1 million straight away?
Right.
Why don't I give you like 1 crore or 2 crores? Why don't you show me something?
Yeah.
So all the time she'd come and say, but with 2 crores, I can't build anything. So then she had a nice lineage. She studied at some top schools and all.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you just call up all your schools and ask, what labs do you need? What instruments do you need? Let's make a list.
Yeah.
How much does it cost? Is one way of doing it. The other is saying, you don't want to own the instrument. That's not your goal. Your goal is to use the instrument. So why don't you just call and ask your professor, hey, I need this instrument for 5 hours or 10 hours or whatever, or 1 week. Just ask, will they give it to you?
Yeah.
Most of them said straight away yes. They said, please come and use. Because so suddenly her requirement of capital, which was actually to own the asset,
Right.
was completely removed.
Yeah.
Then she said, no, even 2 crores is a lot of money. I don't need it because I need only supplies.
Yeah.
So only consumables need to be bought. And that also some of them actually happily gave her,
Yeah.
saying you use it because we anyway have grants for it. It's not like we don't, it's an experiment. We also will join you.
Right.
So what happened was she was able to build prototypes so easily and so quickly that when she actually was in a position to raise money to build the thing, she started asking herself, should I really build or should I still continue to borrow? After a stage, I said, now the time has come, you have to build. Because if you don't build now, it's a problem. Because then, the scale will not come because you can't do what you did. So the it's just a matter of perspective, So help
again, mindset
exactly,
shift, right?
Going back to
Yeah.
that shift. So I think we need to help and nudge our students to think along those lines, saying, what do we actually need now?
Yeah.
And what's the purpose of it? If we are developing that clarity of thinking, they can quickly, and these guys will get it done. Huh? They are very smart.
They're mostly thinking, what do I need? Rather than who can give it to me.
Exactly.
You don't have to buy it and afford it. It is out there who has it and who can give me access.
I think you will agree more than anyone else that there's actually quite a bit of infrastructure available already.
A lot.
If people ask, everyone's happy to give because they want somebody to use these things.
Right.
So,
no, in the incubation center, related discussions, we are talking about, seating capacity. How much seating capacity are we going to build? That has become a metric of incubation center success. And we're saying, that's not it. It's mentoring. It's the kind of conversation, the soft part, right? Entrepreneurs need to do the same rather than thinking I need to own. Can I, access?
So I think those are the things they need, like more conversations, more spaces. I think that's what they need, and some change in mindset. And that will happen, I think, the moment you increase the conversations, increase the interactions, and create spaces where they can do this freely. I think then automatically.
Do we need entrepreneurship colleges? Universities?
Yeah, you asked me a very political question. But see, I've always seen entrepreneurship as a horizontal. I've never thought of it as a vertical. It's not like, even at many schools I've told them, see, horizontal means entrepreneurship is to be taught to everybody. Whoever wants to use it, use it. So what we need is at every university level, it will be nice to have a school of entrepreneurship. But the school of entrepreneurship by itself shouldn't be doing too many things. It should be actually working with all the other schools to actually enable entrepreneurship happen. It should be like a capacity building unit.
Service unit across.
And do some entrepreneurship research, build some entrepreneurship capacity, but work along with all the other units. Because entrepreneurship cannot be like designed and generated as an independent body. I think it won't serve its real potential.
There's several programs being started. One of them is Mastercard's program. Master Union's program. Master Union, right? So where they are actually, putting students through experiences. Build small venture, now build a bigger venture, now even bigger. Then they're throwing resources at them, giving them time and space. So that's what I'm referring to. Do we need more such initiatives where the goal is to actually experience entrepreneurship? And actually impart knowledge and understanding of only those things that you require, rather than having, whatever 100 courses that you have to complete.
Let me give you an example. So if you read Steve Jobs' biography, you realize that this guy, when he was in college, was simply dropping into classes without any agenda, right? And that actually later helped him so much when he was actually building the venture. Today, again, we are putting an instrumental mindset, a very mechanistic mindset, by saying, let us give them exactly what they need for today, right? Let them build the venture. They will learn when they need to learn, right? I'm not a big supporter of that. Then I think we should just shut down all universities because people will learn anyway by experience. Why should we have universities at all in the first place? So my thinking is a bit different. For me, knowledge has to be liberal. That is, you learn widely, skill narrowly. Because when you skill narrowly, you can actually do something today. But if you only focus on that, what happens is your breath goes for a toss. Over a period of time, it's highly likely that the person could become extremely stunted because he knows one thing, does one thing very well. But that's not life. Because when you look at the world and the experiences come, if you had more knowledge, you could connect pieces that could create a huge thing. But today, if you don't give that knowledge, the combination possibility is completely eradicated. So very narrow programs that focus on only what's required now is like is another, in my opinion, very nice example of efficiency mindset.
Okay.
Because I'm just saying what is the optimal thing that I can do today to get this person. No, remove that thinking. I think that thinking is what is stopping us actually as a body. So let's throw some resources. Let them learn literature. Let them learn like what Steve Jobs, calligraphy or design today, or let them drop in and out of classes of interest. Then the possibility of combination or this associative thinking, that is the bedrock of good entrepreneurship, can actually happen. Today, what are we saying? I will also tell you what to associate what with. I mean, then what is this whole idea of associational thinking?
Yeah.
If you are also going to tell how to do it, I mean, so that I think we need to really step back. So while these models are okay, these are good experiments. We don't know how far how they will shape up, but I still want to go back and say that we need to have entrepreneurship as a horizontal. Let us seed this across all our departments, across all our schools, and let's see what happens. Let's truly be, capable and willing to embrace uncertainty, at least to some extent, you know, rather than saying that, first tell me what we'll get, then I will start it. I mean, then what is, and then call it entrepreneurship. I mean, it's like it's like beating ourselves. So I think little bit we need. So too much of orchestration, I go back to say, is again this example of a clear efficiency thinking with clear outcomes and all that. I don't think that's the way to go for truly creating the entrepreneurs of the future.
Are we celebrating entrepreneurship too much?
I think we are making too much noise about entrepreneurship, is my opinion. I don't think we're celebrating too much entrepreneurship.
Are we making too much noise then?
Yeah, I think we're making too much noise. To an extent that today most people want to simply say at least that, they're doing something entrepreneurship.
But isn't it necessary? I mean, see, this is a government pushed agenda, right? In 2016, we started Startup India, Make in India before that, and Invest India. All of this, government, this is what government does, right? President or prime minister has to visit, the roads start building, right?
Correct.
If it comes from the top, then it has some effect. So isn't government doing the right thing by talking about startups? Because earlier these small businesses, small units or founders were not heard. Government had no support for them, right? Now at least there is visibility, there is national movement, you can attract resources from outside.
Correct.
Government departments are being asked to procure, have rules to procure things from startups, right? So from, isn't it right to do that?
So my question back to you is, all these little ventures that who are doing really selling to the government and doing all these small businesses, interesting small businesses, are we actually celebrating them? I don't think so. Nobody talks about them. Who are we celebrating or making noise about? A handful of ventures, again and again and again.
But isn't that how it works? See, there'll be not many heroes. You can only celebrate a few people, and they serve as inspiration to others.
Correct.
The first startup for us in IT Mandi, it made it big.
Correct.
Now we have a story to tell to everyone, and more people will get inspired by it. Right? Before that, we were nobody. We had no story to tell.
Correct.
Now everywhere I go, I celebrate my top guy. And the rest of the 100, they stand in line. Yes, we want to do it.
We want to do it. No, stories, say, I'm not saying that this is bad or something, but what I'm saying is we are not doing enough celebration at a broader scale. Now, I'm not saying you should go and celebrate every corner shop that has started off on their own, a juice shop or something. But I think we need to see, truly celebrating entrepreneurship means it's celebrating the spirit of somebody who decided to take action, right? If we wait to see only the people who become successful and then celebrate it, what happens is we are sending a very, very wrong message. We are saying So what actually, on one side, while it inspires a lot of people, it actually puts down a lot of people.
Right.
People are saying, oh, I'm not as successful as this person. I'm just there, sir. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm just surviving. But see, compared to them, I don't do it. I'm not. I've heard so many seasoned entrepreneurs who created hundreds of jobs for 20, 30 years in a row, surviving, making money, having good families who have lived because of that. Um, in private conversations tell me, you know what, actually I'm not a very big success story worth talking about. I'm like, you've survived 30 years, you've grown the business year on year, you've generated 500,000 jobs, families are living because of you. Why aren't you proud about that achievement? No, I mean, compared to that, I'm not even being, worth being invited to an event.
We are on a unicorn hunt.
Correct. So let's not only celebrate them, we should celebrate them. Obviously, there'll always be exceptions, outliers who we may celebrate for inspiration. But I think we need more local heroes. And saying that we need entrepreneurship of every kind. We don't need entrepreneurship of only one kind.
Yeah.
I think that is one risk that we carry, because everyone is not going to become a unicorn. It's not possible. It's like, the other example that I always talk to students is, there's always an average line, right? But if you actually see how many people actually sit on the average line, almost no one. And everyone comes to a school, let's say average salary or average size of funding.
Yeah.
I said, the moment you draw an average line, 50% of you have to be lower.
Right.
Otherwise, what's the concept of an average line? Then don't draw it. No, we need that, draw that. Then only people will come.
Yeah.
Right. So we're somewhere, I think we need to understand what's the goal. So while I appreciate the government's interest to spread the word, I think we have to separate two things here. And I think this is very important as a nation. One is developing entrepreneurial mindset at scale.
Yeah.
That means people can think differently, act differently wherever they are. That is number one. Second is actually venture out. So now entrepreneurship policy, I think, should take responsibility for both. If we say entrepreneurship responsibility is only for venture creation, then I think it's a very narrow agenda, because there are a lot of people who'd like to be entrepreneurs inside organizations. You give them, they'll start a BU, they'll scale it up. Right? There are people who do impact ventures, social ventures. They don't want to actually become rich or become famous, but they want to really make change happen in society.
Right.
So I think we need to allow all sorts of entrepreneurs to come up. Some of the businesses, like, are not so innovative in the sense, like, new to the world ideas, but they are very, very creative in the way they do things. So we need creative entrepreneurs as well.
Right.
We need cultural entrepreneurs. We need people who can carry forward the culture and the heritage of this country.
Right.
Now, if we don't allow them, we think, like your own example, like somebody saying, hey, ye mat karo, because agri entrepreneurship. Father is a farmer, doesn't want the son to be in farming at all.
Right.
Says, hey, nahi yaar, you go out and work. We'll just keep it like, we'll give it out to some large company and let them just run it. So whereas the child really wants to, spend time on the fields and do something different, create a, farming experience for people, but there's no support. So what I think is, we need all sorts of entrepreneurs in all sectors. And for that, entrepreneurship should be treated as a horizontal with two big outcome variables. I think the first outcome variable is mindset shift. The second one should be venturing, which can be really creating a venture. But I think, like in a university, I'd love to have students who think differently go out and work for companies. Just imagine the next set of 500 CEOs of all top corporations. They come from the university. Who else can be prouder? And that can come, I think, through entrepreneurial mindset. Because if you look at a Satya Nadella, for example, or a Sundar Pichai, I think they are quite entrepreneurial in the way they think and act. But if we don't see them as entrepreneurs of certain kind, then we miss a lot of replicable routes. And we go back to, only the exceptions. That alone is not a good story. So I think we need more balance to the story. That's what I'm trying to comment.
Okay, great. I also want to chart out the research agenda. What do we need to research on student entrepreneurship, right? I'll give you some idea about, very few indicators or data points from the previous survey that we've had. We had about 14,000 students participate from across the country in the survey. Who participated in the survey, of course, is a question people self-select right into the survey. What we know is 14% students say, I will be an entrepreneur on graduation. Okay. What would you be when you graduate? Civil servant, entrepreneur, small business employee, large business employee. So 14% pick entrepreneurship, my own business, right? 5 years later, where do you see yourself? 31% say entrepreneur. From 14 to now, this is 31. Okay. Are you working on an idea? 38% say yes, I'm working on an idea. Do you have a venture with 3 months of sale? 4.8% say yes.
Okay.
Out of the 38% who have an idea, have you gone to an incubation center? 26% say yes. Okay. So these are some numbers. What is your reaction to these numbers? Of course, we can deflate them a little bit. But does this tell you anything? Does it connect with what you read in literature?
It's very interesting. So I'm sure you can ask many questions as you sit and think about it. But what pushes a person to start immediately upon graduation? I think it needs to be understood better if at all we want to help this, because I think the numbers go up. So I've done a informal survey with my alumni, and I have understood that, say, in a B school, typically 3 to 5 years out of B school is a very sweet spot where a lot of people start up. So whatever startups we see, the largest part of the population happens around 4-5 years out of college. So it's easy to explain because maybe they had loans and they want to clear it off and then they start and things like that. But I think that's a smaller part of the story. I think there's something deeper.
Okay.
So they were waiting for something to happen. They were waiting for developing, or they were developing it slowly, or I don't know, something's going on. So when somebody says I want to start at graduation, what makes them do it? Is it conditions at home? Is it conditions, or is it the passion? Is it interest, or whatever? So, and does it differ based on whether you're in a technical school versus a a non-technical school, and so on? So then this whole idea of dropout rates, like, one is, as we go along, number of people becoming entrepreneurs increases. That's understandable, but why only 38% wanted to be entrepreneurs? Why only 26 reached out to an incubator? What happened to the 26? So, for example, did at least one or two of them become an incubatee, or no, or all 26 became incubatees? Why? Why or why not? And what drives these people to reach out? Is it because they knew somebody at the incubation center? I still meet people who come and ask, sir, I have an idea, which incubator should I go to? With so much information available, even ChatGPT can help you identify that, I assume. So why are people still thinking where to go, who to raise money from, who should I talk to in the first place? And so on. So I think there's a lot of things inhibiting people from doing it. And why only 38 people at the end of so many years? Why 14? I'm very curious about these 14 actually, because when 14 out of 100 say I want to start at graduation, that's a big number. So how many actually start? And is there a way to understand why that 14 becomes 1 or 2 or something, or it remains 14 and then over time this 14 go away and then another come in? I think there are a lot of mechanisms at play. And how many of these 14 really came from an entrepreneurship course?
Right.
Did they even go to the course, or is it like more of them coming from not attending the course? Then it's also things to ask what we are doing in the course. Are we making them more conscious of the risks that many of them who attend the course say, no, don't do entrepreneurship?
Is it better to be leave them blind and actually explore it and build the capacity?
And I think some experiments around different pedagogies, like for example, if you ran a course with an action-based pedagogy and another course with a regular pedagogy, which had better impact on their mindset shift, chances of venturing, etc., could also be interesting experiments to run. With regard to the student entrepreneurs who do with faculty support, for example, assessing the nature of the faculty and then seeing after, say, 3 months or 6 months, how the mentoring actually went about, could tell us a lot about, whether students really get mentoring help, or what is actually going on.
Right.
So that is another space I think really needs to be explored through experiments. Uh, I'll need a little bit more information on the data set before I can
Yeah,
come
sure.
up with
No,
ideas.
so
But
in general, let's say, you know entrepreneurship theory
yeah.
well. From general entrepreneurship theory, what are the ideas that you would love to test on student entrepreneurs? Right? As successful
Yeah.
entrepreneurs or experienced entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
network theory, ecosystem theory,
Yeah.
or their personality, how those things could be different for students.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some ideas.
Yeah.
For example, corporate
Yeah.
entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
right? Now you're in academic,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. So
academic
I'm thinking
entrepreneurship. Some
actually.
ideas can be transpose some ideas
Yeah.
and experiment in academic setup.
No, I think one of the things clearly is, you know, uh, how students um, approach venture creation. So we assume that venture creation happens in a certain way, right? There's theories about it, like, you come up with an opportunity, come up with an idea, you do this, you do this, you do this. Do students really follow these steps, or do they do it in some other ways, which are very different? That's one thing I think we should really, because we're making assumptions there that they will also follow, which may not be true, because they are younger, they're more open-minded, so they might be actually tinkering differently.
Yeah.
So that is one clear thing to explore. I think with regard to ecosystem use, I think one area that really requires some exploration is pre-incubation. Pre-incubation is really understudied.
Yeah.
And I think student setting is a great space to study what happens before that. The other thing which I think can be studied in student setting is pre-venture creation processes.
Yeah.
So, for example, team development processes. How do you find co-founders?
Yeah.
Right? What happens just before you formally agree on the venture? What sort of conflicts arise? How are those conflicts handled? So team formation is I mean, because the only advantage in student setting is you have a little bit more control over that setting. So at least you have access. In the real world, you don't know when they decide to start and when they actually register the venture.
Yeah.
So that pre-venturing period, we don't have access. Whereas here we know that somebody comes and says, we're thinking, and then slowly, you can trace them until the time they decide, okay, let's venture, let's start. So I think any pre-venturing, and that's a hot space actually, because most entrepreneurship scholars today say that we have very little knowledge about pre-venturing, especially with team development, venture development. In fact, Holger Patzelt and colleagues at Germany, they've been writing about this pre-venturing part. They have papers in ETP on this, which say that they've been actually toying with this at the university. So I think those are good spaces. With regard to ecosystem, I think it would be very interesting to take an ecosystem lens and apply it on a university ecosystem. And see whether really do we have all the pieces at all in the first place? How much gaps exist, or are they present very differently? So maybe the university entrepreneurship ecosystem vis-a-vis a typical entrepreneurial ecosystem in the real world, are they different? How different? Do they need to be designed differently, because we're dealing with different people? So do we need to think of ecosystem itself differently across these two places? I think that would be there, and related questions around that thing.
And in the university ecosystem, one peculiar thing is, you set out to impart education and knowledge. And within that large agenda, now there is a narrow effort being given to creating ventures through students, right? So that completely changes the nature of ecosystem, the soft conversations or the lenses through which students are being seen, perceived, and supported, right? So that changes the flavor of the ecosystem completely.
Maybe it'll be interesting to even look at what are the spillover effects. So, for example, you do all of this and you get only like 10 ventures at the end of the year. But what has happened to the rest of the people? Have they become more sensitive to startups? Have they thought of working for startups? We don't check that at all. Like, for example, I keep telling my students, hey, if you really studied entrepreneurship course, you don't want a startup. But if you decide, no, sir, I want to really work with a startup, let me join a Series A, Series B. I'm even more, ambitious. I'll go with an angel invested startup and help them build it out. It's almost like getting an experience to see And then that experience is today valued in the market, especially if you worked with startups and all that. So are we creating people who have the mindset to work with emerging startups, futuristic
So
companies?
the data says 90% of the startups fail. The question is, what happens to the entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
Right? Do they fail or do they restart and then do more? Right? That number is nowhere available actually today. Yeah.
So that's another thing that I think we can explore. So I think student setting also gives us another interesting opportunity to run experiments and repeated measure studies, because we have access to them for elongated period of time. So some methodologies that is very difficult to run so for example, I was trying to run this study on, like, for example, there is a community of inquiry through whom, like, mentors, investors, some people you believe in, like your faculty. So how often do you reach out to these guys, and what's the quality of those discussions over a period of time, and what is its effect on your opportunity identification? Now this, if I try to run several times, I've tried to run this in India, in Peru, in different places I initiated this. Repeated measures I want to do. But the problem with repeated measures, these guys don't stay on, because because they're all dispersed. So
hard to track.
Yeah, hard to track. But I think some of these tests you can actually run when you're in a university setting, because one, they're there for 3-4 years. So if they say run this for 1 year or 1.5 years, if you run for say 12 months, you're running repeated measures. You get to know a lot. Like, for example, when somebody is truly passionate about something, are they like spending? What are their patterns of thinking? Even sleep patterns, leisure patterns. You can study everything.
Actually, there are so many, not necessarily unobservable, but in a university setting, there's so much other things going on. For example, they're participating in sports, right? And kids coming in after 12th, when they play sports, they physically develop, right? Their cognition also improves, right? There's a lot of background influence that they have, which might shape them up. So segregating the effect of that will also be.
No, it's very, very interesting. Student settings gives you chance to do certain things that is very difficult to do when you're in a real world.
And you've come out of your house for the first time. Now you're on your own. You're exploring freedom, right? First year is all about eating out, going out with friends, and so that also shapes them very differently. So in this context, the students or the entrepreneur in this context is also personally growing at a rapid rate compared to other entrepreneurs, right? That could have a lot of difference on how quickly they learn, how do they react, how do they absorb what is told to them, so on. Great. So this is by far the deepest conversation, and especially because I'm exploring these questions myself, and having spoken to students, working closely with them, and this initiative of GUESS is for students, and I'm the only odd man out. I'm the only faculty. Everyone else is student.
Oh, wow.
And seeing them do all of this, we're building GUESS also entrepreneurially, with students taking the initiative, doing what they can do, taking GUESS in different directions, right? All these questions have been very intriguing, and looking at it from theoretical lenses. My goal of this conversation was to have you here and validate with you several ideas that we either have been listening and also promoting amongst the students. Does it make sense? Are we saying the right things? Because students are not only doing this survey, they're asking me questions. They're sending their questions to be asked to you, to other guests who were there. And then we have to send them responses as well. So what I'm telling them is that correct? Is that valid? And are we taking theories or learnings from experienced entrepreneurs and then mindlessly applying that to students, right? Are we doing something wrong there, right? So I need to calibrate all of that. And we've spoken about, mindset formation. I have so many notes that I've created through this. But, intrinsically, someone, a person who is in the early ages, in an environment where infrastructurally you have a lot of support, but you emphasized on soft side of support as well in that ecosystem. And we contrasted how ecosystem in the university can be really different from real ecosystems out there. then the players in that ecosystem, how they shape up the thinking of these people, how entrepreneurship should be taught, based on experience and lived experiences, necessarily the activities and building the capacity of faculty. All of these ideas are worth researching. And through this conversation, we've also brought out research agenda. Towards the end, saying what are the questions that we really need to answer. And I hope through this conversation we are able to encourage several faculty, several researchers also to take up entrepreneurship, especially in the student setting, as a research interest. And hopefully the data that we collect through the survey, although we've said that data is only about outliers.
No,
So we need a lot of qualitative
it's
inquiry.
still possible.
Yeah. So thank you so much for unraveling several of these questions, and I continue to have more, but I think this discussion was needed and is timely as we set up this data set for the first time in India about students and what they're thinking. And hopefully we can carry forward this research forth to contribute to the ecosystem.
Thanks a ton, Puran. This is equally interesting, thinking through some of the questions you asked. And I think guess is a great idea that you brought to India, and I wish it the best success, because I think we need to know a lot more, especially now that we're building an entrepreneurial India. I think it's very important to know more about what's happening on campuses with students at all levels. So I think what you're doing is a great start. So I hope it catalyzes a lot more entrepreneurship research based on India data, and take it out to the world. I think the world will have a lot more to learn from all of this. So good luck and my very best wishes.
Thank you so much, Raj. Thank you. And that brings an end to this conversation. We're happy to see support from ecosystem enablers. So far, we've had several entrepreneurs come and talk to us, but very happy to see that faculty enablers, policymakers, incubation heads are coming and contributing to this discussion. And hopefully, that only encourages the students to take the first step towards building a venture. And as Raj said, the bigger agenda should be for us to, at a scale, create the entrepreneurial mindset. With that, we conclude this conversation. Thanks, Raj.
Thank you. Thanks, Puran. Thanks.